Hey, welcome in, guys. I started at 12 minutes early, but I'm just going to give a little bit of time for some folks to come in and just make sure I got my stuff good. Good to see the folks in. We're going to have a fun one tonight.
Top coat, tail lights, I'm driving through the night. She won't chip in a dime, but starts every fight. Claims the emotional low, but it's all a drama queen show. Leaving me carrying the weight while she's stealing the blow. They come running just as fast as they can. Every guy's wearing that can't be woman. Can't be woman. Can't be woman.
Coming out with the CD. Oh, man. The album's coming out soon, man. We got a lot of hitters. I'm going to play another one after this that just came out. We got a fresh drop from Mad Villainy coming in. Hope everybody's having a fantastic Saturday night. That was Deadbeat Woman by Luke Nielsen. And next up, we got Better Get My Dowry from Mad Villainy. Let's check it out. This one's too good.
She's gotta have my money in her hand. When I walk down the aisle and I take my stand, gotta take my hand and place the rubber band, baby. Gotta have my money in her hand. Oh, the woman better give me my dowry. Give me my dowry.
That's what we're talking about.
The woman better give me my dowry. Give me my dowry. It's gonna be a celebration. Me and my family getting crunk up at the congregation. We'll be hooting and a hollering and watching the Father bring the dollars in. It's been that way since way back in the day. It's only fair play. Better pay me if you wanna take my name. Give me my dowry. Give me my dowry. Give me my dowry. Give me my dowry. Give me my dowry.
That song was too good. Special thanks to Mad Villainy for that. Gosh, man, this stream almost didn't happen today. I was on like a 6-hour drive today, and I finally got back after all just dealing with traffic and doing all this crazy stuff. And then when I got home, I tried to get the stream stuff set up, and my cameras weren't working. And then I realized that my capture card had died. This right here, this thing, my computer was making a funny noise for like, I don't know, like since like last week, and I didn't know what it was. And hell, this might not even have been the problem, but it wasn't working. I was like, oh my God, the capture card died. What are we going to do? We don't have a show tonight. you know? And then by luck, I had bought another capture card on sale. The reason I bought it was it's the Elgato multicam, so it has 4 HDMI inputs, so you can have 4 cameras, which really I don't need. But it had gone off the market for a long time, and it became a legacy product, and they said they weren't going to have it again. Then it went on sale again, like somehow it was on their site. So I was like, I better buy one now, and I bought it. And I've just been having this extra capture card sitting around on like my other desk for essentially, just because I was an opportunist about it. So I was able to switch that new capture card in for this one, and I got the cameras back up. Otherwise, I would have had to cancel the show. I didn't know what I was going to do. So I just lucked out. We really lucked out, man. I don't know if we're going to get the folks in tonight or the viewers, but if not, that's too bad. We'll just have to go have the show with whoever's here, which is damn fine with me. Man, it says, God, I hope this is right. It says I'm offline, but I hope I'm not offline. If you guys can confirm if you're seeing me. Okay, looks like people are seeing me. I don't know. I know people might be expecting me to start at 8. I put it out an hour ahead because I had stuff to do. But then I got back and I was like, let me get this started. Then my capture card was broken. I was like, damn, I can't get it started. Then by, some grace, I had the other capture card. But we'll give it maybe 5 minutes or something. Let me just read through the comments, see if anybody else comes in. Might be a pretty low night tonight. But that doesn't matter. We'll still have fun reacting to this. So it should be a good time regardless. Gosh, I don't even know if I can bring up the chats. The camera angle has an echo going on. Ah, damn. Okay. I'll try to figure that out. Thanks for letting me know. It probably has to do with this new capture card that I had to put in. That sucks. I don't want to have to... and it's probably something really stupid too. Audio output. I wish I can stop it, but oh, here it is. I think that did it. That right there, that should have stopped the echo. If you can confirm that with me, man, that'd be fantastic. It's basically a new input, so I had to, yeah, I see it. Okay, there we go. The echo should be gone now. So let me know if you still hear it. If not, then I think we're crap out of luck, and I might have to just crap the screen. So, yeah, please confirm if the echo is gone. No echo? Huh, Luke Nielsen says, now gone. Okay, thank God. Yeah, it sucks to have to do this on the fly, man. It almost all went to crap today. 7 viewers, no Klaus yet. Hopefully we'll see Klaus. I know I'm starting it at a different time. Honestly, the stream is hard to get started if Klaus isn't in the chat yet, so I'm gonna give him a little bit more time. Echo gone, or I hadn't heard it previous. Perfect. Okay, that's good. I think we're okay. Awesome thumbnail. Thank you. That was actually Dan the Man. Dan the Man. Let's give Dan the Man some praise and credit for creating this thumbnail, which I thought was pretty cool. And I was like, you know what? The hell with it. Let me just make it the stream thumbnail for the night. And we'll have fun with that there. So, yeah, hopefully the whole beginning part of the stream is probably just on the ground now if there was this annoying echo. So sorry about that, guys. What's going on, Michael saying? I saw you write something in there about needing help with child support. We'll have to chat about that. Luke says, this debate is awful. Pretty much 2 guys talking past each other devolving into insults. Yeah, it got pretty bad. Andrew Wilson is still complaining over this one calling CGA names. Not very orthodox of him, left a really bad taste in my mouth, to be transparent. Yeah, it's because of the moderator not doing his job. The moderator is like this younger guy, and it's like you got these 2 heavyweights, basically, being the referee in between these 2 right here. Yeah, that was part of it, but Andrew showed his true character. He did a show after the Greg interview, and I did see him bad-mouthing Greg and all his audience. The thing is, it could have been an awesome show. Oh yeah, it was such a letdown. They don't understand that most of their fan base likes both of these guys. Yeah, I'd say that's true. That's a bit of a shame. It's a bit of a shame. We're gonna go through it tonight, and we'll do it as respectfully as possible. And try. I'm not. It's gonna be all of us together. I'm gonna do my best to give my opinion on whatever I see fit. And we're gonna look at this through a dowry perspective, through a gold pill lens. So surely that'll be brought up. I mean, who we kidding?
I have no dowry. If anything, I have a negative dowry.
Your dowry, it's my right.
So, we're not making it through the show without that. I was hoping it would have been, but I was disappointed. I fallen between both of them and had respect for both of them at the time. Now I don't have as much respect for Andrew. He lost me. Andrew Wilson is not a tradcon, so of course he is rough around the edges. Let me see. Hey, Shah, I need your help. I got a bit of a situation. I could use your advice. I would love if you can spend 5 minutes with me sometime. Yeah, man, that's no problem. Maybe just, I'll have to check my email. If you check an email, maybe we can do a Zoom or something. That's no problem. Regarding child support, as this Deadbeat Woman. Yeah, Deadbeat Woman was the one we were playing at the beginning. I love that song. We got Peter Wright. Yo, hey, Peter Wright. Great to see you, sir. Thanks for being in here. And, dude, I'm glad you made it. 6-hour drive is grueling. Yeah, it was rough. And the time kept getting switched on me, which is the worst part. I'm just glad I made it for the stream. I feel so much better just being here hanging out with you guys. It's truly a blessing. But yeah, I made it back, so I'm gonna sleep well tonight. The nice thing is I get Tuesday off for a holiday, so I get Veterans Day off for work. And I think it's Veterans Day. I can't remember now. But so that would be nice. I don't know if I'll stream. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll do a surprise stream. Maybe I'll do like a gaming stream just to relax and enjoy the day off. Props to Dan the Man. Absolutely. Oh, yeah. The boys do good work. Yeah. I mean, I really like that second song that we played. Better. What's that called again? From Mad Villainy? Let's see what he called that. That was a fantastic song. I'm going to play the heck out of that. Better Get My Dowry by Mad Villainy. What a bunch of legends. Sup, fellas? Pleasure to see you, Mr. Pitt. Yeah, watching Andrew insult CGA was rough. Yeah, the thing is, too, is like, they both have, like, their audiences, and I took a look at some of the comments and stuff, and, I think it's going to be hard to find an impartial reaction on this one. We'll do our best over here. Obviously, you guys know I'm a big CGA fan. I'm not unfamiliar with Andrew Wilson's work. I've seen some of his stuff. Obviously, he's kind of everywhere. Rachel Wilson was in here one time. She left a super chat. We were going to have a chat, but, it may or may not happen. I'm not really into pressuring these things, so we'll see. So yeah, I mean, I think I need to stay mostly quiet for the debate reaction. I already reacted a ton in the Discord. That's all right, man. I mean, if you feel compelled to say something, I'm, especially you, Luke. Like, if there's new people in here and they're just being annoying, then, Mr. Pitt will take care of them. But when it comes to you, Luke, and the folks I'm used to seeing, like, this is for us to have fun, and don't worry too much about it, man. We're just having a good time out here. So, if you want to say stuff, it's all right. Veterans Day is my birthday. Well, hey, man. Shout out to you. Happy soon to be birthday. I hope you enjoy that. Maybe have a cigar if that's your thing. Nice piece of cake with a lot of butter in that cake too. I mean, we want cake with real ingredients in it. But yeah, happy birthday. That's fantastic. It felt like you were watching Mom and Dad arguing, nothing you could do to stop the train wreck. That's a great metaphor. Yeah, that's a great metaphor. Nobody was going to stop him either. In fairness, CGA also fell into the insult thing. That's what it sounds. I mean, I think this is why this is a good imagery for that. I think it kind of became a boxing match without much of a referee. I mean, okay, yeah, it got a little bad, but I didn't think it was that bad. I mean, well, it probably could have been better, but we're gonna try to take it apart bit by bit. I like both and still find both have their merits, but land on the CGA side. Unless I miss something, you can't just exclude the state with a church marriage. Yeah, I think that's going to be a lot of the discussion. Obviously, like, I kind of look at the red pill, especially as it exists today, and say it's mostly aimed at helping men increase short-term options. And we have a long-term, sort of solution problem, basically, when it comes to the long-term relationship or the marriage, problem between men and women. And a lot of the red pill helps men get to a position to attract women, but then leveraging yourself into that when it comes to something like marriage is still pretty risky. So a lot of guys avoid that, and that's how you get, this.
Your dowry.
That's
My
that's
right.
literally, what we focus on this channel because it's fun and we find it interesting. But we over here have been looking at how can we make the long-term proposal better in a way that makes sense. What is fair when it comes to the long term? In the context of what was it really in history, we went all through the different types of marriage transactions. We've looked at, so much of the family law over here, and we're trying to figure out, okay, based off of what we've been looking at as far as historical marriage transaction goes and how that interfaces with marriage and how that changes our perspective on what's typically sold to us as the traditional marriage, according to, your cosplayer tradcons. So then taking that and then kind of looking also at what does family law say and how does that affect things? What can you expect to happen? We're trying to that's where this whole gold pill emerges, as far as what does a fair, bargain or deal look like when it comes to this. So that's, I'm going to be looking at it through that lens as we're going through this. Good evening, everybody. Okay, thank God Klaus is here. Now we can get the show started. We're waiting for you, Klaus. Glad to see it. Klaus is in the house. Yeah, they both start swinging at each other. I'm with Don DeMarco. Hey, MS, great to see you. Hello, Shah. How are you, sir? Not bad, man. Not bad. Little on the exhausted side, but that doesn't mean we're not going to do our stream. We still got to do the stream, even if we're tired or we did a bunch of stuff or we're not even feeling well or just all these things are happening. We don't stop out here. We got to keep it going, as much as we can. It's like 90% insults, 5% statements of value. I felt like I was digging for gold to try and learn anything. I have an ecclesiastical marriage. Okay, says the state in another universe. MS is also my initials. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Yeah, both had some cringe moments. Remember, boys, there's nothing more important than marrying a wealthy woman. Exactly. Where's that at?
Being a freak. No, not the rainbow.
Oh, hold on a second.
And there's nothing more important than marrying a wealthy woman. As you get older, I'm going to teach you tricks on how to find a dumb lady that loves just tanning and comes from a family full of perhaps oil money. And then you can be a spoken for, well taken care of trophy husband and surf every day. And then maybe someday...
this whole thing really does speak to the... It really speaks to the difference between how the red pill has evolved. Somebody, I think it was Tifa. Damn, I'm hoping I can find it. But he sent this old chart from Chateau Hartiste, I believe was his name. And he's like one of these old manosphere guys. Damn, there's been so much conversation in this. I don't even know if I could pull it up. But there was this thing on there called the kept man. Oh, damn, this is sick right here. Mr. Pitt sent this, choose your fighter. Oh, gosh, the AI images are too good, man. They're too good. Let me see if, I don't even think I can find that, man. Damn. Did he put it in gold pill content? Oh, it's right here. Yeah. Let me download it so I can make it big. Oh my gosh, notes. Archetypes of men. There we go. I just want to be able to make it big so we can zoom into it because we're going to need to do that. Bring me my dowry. So, and this was something that was made a long time ago also. Like this was made, I think he said in 2014. Oh no, this was from Joker. Shout out Joker. Joker, you're a legend, man. Joker found me, I believe, from Coach Greg Adams' channel too. That's true. Here's another. So, okay, here it is. Here's another precedent for the gold pill from a TRP OG called Royce. Okay. In Maxim 21, he said betas pay, alpha split, super alphas profit. So according to his perspective, gold pill men are super alphas, which means gold pill men are the opposite of beta males. I mean,
Your dowry, it's my right.
so this was a very old thread. You know, something that, oh damn, it's pulling it up there. Maybe it's not that old, but it is before COVID. Oh, what the hell? Did I just lose that thing? Damn it. There we go. But yeah, I mean, so he talks about it in here. This was in the Discord, and he gives a bunch of maxims. So, you know, Joker was pointing out, oh gosh, Maxim 21. All right, Maxim 21. Was that it? Oh, there's too many. I don't know. Maybe we're not matching it right. Unless there's another one. He probably numbered that one wrong. Let me see this. Control F super alpha. Here we go. Oh, it is Maxim 21. In the quest for romance, boldness overcomes a lot of personal flaws. Timidity swamps a lot of personal virtues. Maxim 21. Betas pay, alpha split, super alphas profit. Interesting. And then Joker also sent us this. I said, thanks for sharing. It's interesting because the current space, especially the red pill space, seems to abhor the idea of getting any money from a woman, even if it's 50-50. That's a lot of the current red pill content creators, which is an interesting thing to note. Joker says, that's true. Here's another TRPOG called ARC. ARC, who also accepted the idea of getting money from women. He included it in the categories of gigolos and male sugar babies, aka kept men. So there's this whole breakdown right here, which is interesting. It says mode 1 up here. The top 12 categories of men who tend to engage in sex with women, either regularly, semi-regularly, or at least occasionally, who are not their wife, fiance, cohabitation partner, or long-term girlfriend. And it's interesting just kind of how this is broken up. Note, this chart only emphasizes men who are well known for engaging in episodes of short-term and short-term right here. That's interesting. And or non-monogamous relations with women. Men who are more known for long-term strictly monogamous, men who function as a woman's husband, fiance, long-term boyfriend are not included in this chart. So that's interesting. Right here we have the sugar daddy, the trick or the John, whatever that is, and whatever that is. So that's pretty bad. But on this side, you know, a sugar daddy or simply a man who enjoys wining and dining is a man who offers to treat women to meals at 4 or 5-star restaurants, purchase expensive materialistic gifts and possessions for women, have women join them on expensive vacations, and offer to subsidize or fully finance women's overall quality of life. These men never offer women monetary compensation directly in exchange for their short-term or non-monogamous sexual companionship. So, you know, men who operate as sugar daddies do not mind a woman being a shallow, superficial, highly materialistic gold digger type. And, you know, that's kind of reminiscent of when Coach says it's a monetized dating marketplace, boss up. I think his form of indulging in this is probably different from that. I don't think he'd ever take a woman on vacation. He might meet some there. But typically his, prescription is give him the fistful of 20s up front or whatever. And, you know, don't worry about it after that. Attribute or characteristic that distinguishes a sugar daddy. So, okay. Yeah, the other side of this. So then you have your pickup artists, your players or ladies man, lying or manipulative womenizers. And you have your breeder, concubine, bull stud, or swinger. At the top, there's Mac. I don't even know if this is meant to be hierarchical like that, but there's the Mac or master seducer, the street pimp, the gigolo, and then the kept man. The kept man is what's kind of interesting here. A kept man is the male equivalent to a woman operating as a materialistic gold-digging sugar baby. The woman who is financially materialistically generous with the kept man is known as a sugar mama. The sugar mama will often pay a kept man's living expenses in exchange for access to both the man's sexual and non-sexual attention and companionship. A kept man rarely, if ever, gives women access to his non-sexual attention and companionship for free. So I don't know. It's an interesting breakdown. I think these all lie outside or to the extremes And when it comes to the dowry is more so supposed to be a balance as a check on hypergamy. So the man's providing something up to a certain point based off his potential or his current career or whatever. And he's matching with someone that's endowed with a commensurate amount that makes sense for someone of his value, which hence, solves the problem of hypergamy. If you're going to corrupt that system, you can have someone who is looking for the highest earning man, but brings a very small amount of dowry or no dowry.
I have no dowry. If anything, I have a negative dowry.
On the other end, you can have a guy who doesn't bring that much in earning potential, but he's looking for the woman with the biggest dowry. And that's, what we saw in some of those newspapers about the Greeks. And they had a term called proikateris, proika, meaning dowry. And the word means dowry hunters, basically. So they're out there and they're looking, how can I find the richest woman, basically. Both of those are hypergamous, right? Because it's an uneven match. The negotiation during this process is supposed to make it an even match. So yeah, that's kind of the situation there. Michael Sayin says, in early colonial America, ecclesiastical marriage was often necessitating a Church of England minister, the public announcement of bans in church, even if the ceremony took place at home. So the rapper Trick Daddy is a combination of those two. It seems like it. If I remember correctly from his Sunday stream, CGA rarely brings sand to the beach, but he's taken his JUCOs to a handful of destinations. Yeah, I mean, it's probably not that outright how it's written in there. And the sugar thing probably has evolved to some extent to what it is now, which I would say, they would say, well, it's not really prostitution, not in the strict sense of it, which is true, but it's very close to that in some senses of that. Michael Sayin says, hey, thank you for the super chat, by the way. I want Shah and I to have a show on dowry and bride prices. I wonder if anyone would be interested in that. I'm sure they might. I'm sure they might be. Let's see here. Okay, what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna get this debate reaction started. I think we've had enough fun here. So let's just go ahead and get into this, guys. And we're gonna try to react to this as faithfully as we can and try to respect both gentlemen. And I will try to call it as I see it. I might put some polls out there if I'm not sure. Definitely interested to hear what you guys got to say if you feel a certain way about it. So let's go ahead and just get into it. I don't have any, sources for tonight. I don't have any TikToks or stuff like that. I didn't want to do all that tonight because I just want to focus on this debate. So let's just do the debate for tonight, and then that way we can give it its just due. All right, so I'll start it from the beginning.
He might have to go on his.
Oh, you know what? I forgot. I think somebody said that this actually starts at like the 12-minute mark or something. 7:20. All right. Well, 7:20. Okay, and damn, I thought oh crap. I thought somebody put in a freaking timestamp for that. It's all good. It's about here somewhere. Okay, I think they're writing notes for probably their opening statement. I saw part of this, but I was trying to watch it live. I didn't catch the beginning. So that's where we're at there. Guys, hopefully sound and everything's coming in fine. I had to do a last-minute switch of some equipment. And please let me know if you guys can hear the video.
That's how I'm going to see my notes.
Okay, cool. Let's get this thing going. I'll kick it off. You guys ready?
Yep.
All right.
I think it was 14. Okay, yeah, looks like we're here. All right, guys, so small crowd tonight. That's okay. Let's go and just have some fun and react to this.
Yeah, we're good. Okay, guys, finally getting started. Thanks for being patient. I know there was some delays. We got Andrew here versus Coach Greg Adams, a.k.a. the Free Agent Lifestyle. We're going to talk about today, is marriage worth it for men in the West? So let's get into some opening statements. Who wants to start off?
Yeah, man, marriage is a great institution. It was an institution that built the community of America. Most of the better communities that have safety, good children, good schools are typically centered around marriage. However, marriage has not progressed to the point where men could be safe legally. And a lot.
I'll say right off the bat, I like this idea of progression, and only because I've seen that it's historically true, that the institution of marriage has changed over time. You know, in some, it went from bride prices, you know, it went to dowries, it went to at fault divorce, then now we're in no fault, you know, if we're going to look at it from the legal side like that. But the way marriage is negotiated in a lot of ways, or bargained for, has changed alongside culture and technology and factors like that. You can say religion is one of those, but I just want to acknowledge that. So when Coach says that marriage now, in its form now, is something that maybe isn't the best for men, is something that I can kind of see where he's coming from, because marriage has changed throughout history.
A lot of men have to the point where men could be safe legally, and a lot of men have experienced tremendous damage, collateral damage as a result, and it has led to broken families, a lot of broken hearts, simply because the laws are not positioned to benefit both people in a divorce. Therefore, you have no fault divorce. You have opportunities for women to use the courts against men. And as a result, men have seen 1, 2, and 3 generations of men getting harmed, their grandfathers, their fathers, their uncles, their brothers getting harmed by this. So Generation Z men are not positioning themselves for a positive marriage.
And, you know, I'll also add on to that. A lot of it is because marriage now is sold fundamentally hypergamously, especially with man as provider. There isn't much discussion about the setup of the marriage or the setup of the marital home. Dang it, I literally just lost my place here. So I'll get back to
position to collateral damage as a result, and it has led to broken families, a lot of broken hearts, simply because the laws are not positioned to benefit both people in a divorce. Therefore, you have no fault divorce. You have opportunities for women to use the courts against men. And as a result, men have seen 1, 2, and 3 generations of men getting harmed, their grandfathers, their fathers, their uncles, their brothers getting harmed by this. So Generation Z men are not positioning themselves for a positive marriage.
Yeah, and we've seen this, you know, there is a divorce machine, there is a welfare child support machine. And a lot of men are looking at that. They have seen people close to them, their parents split, whatever it happens to be, get run through it and say, you know, I'm going to look at this differently. Now, the legality in the machine is one thing. On the other end of that is the cultural sort of mythos that surrounds this. This idea of man as provider, no matter what, and the kind of gynocentric, you can say, pedestaling of women not being really expected to bring anything as far as a financial contribution goes, which we know from the dowry history was something that they were expected to do or they could not enter into the marriage. And this was for a long time in European history, going back, you know, almost 2,000 years in some places, especially as far as Europe is concerned, or the West, you can say. Cesar Quintana, hey, shout out to you, man. Great to see you. Always a blessing. Thank you so much for that super chat, man. I appreciate that. It's very generous of you. I hope you're doing well. Maurice says, I'm married, so I'm biased. Hey, that's okay, man. Shout out to you, Maurice. I'm married as well. Hey, Post Meal Man, I haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you, man. I'm married as well and would like a second wife. Yeah, see, so Post Meal Man is he's referring to a type of marriage as it was, you know, a long time ago, maybe in like the Old Testament times. He's in a type of polygynous marriage, something that's more bride price oriented. I think Michael Sayan would like that. LOL, please don't call them Generation Z men. Post Milan wants to share that love. Peter Wright with the $10. Thank you so much, Peter. I appreciate that. That's very generous. I'll try to spend that responsibly. Thank you, and it's a blessing to have you here. Hope you're doing well. Peter the man, absolutely. All right, let's move in.
So at this particular point, if someone asked me, would I recommend marriage for them, and they were in a certain position in life, they weren't established, I would say no. There's no benefit for the person to get married today.
Got it.
And see, this is interesting. He says if they weren't established, that he wouldn't. I don't know if he necessarily tells men not to. What Coach typically counsels is leverage and options. You know, we talk about over here this problem of the high value man, and the red pill often encourages self improvement, even to the tune of hyper self improvement. When the men get there, they have this problem of why settle down with one woman, and then they're like a kid in the candy store. And a lot of the arguments against the settling down is that it's not fair. What are they getting out of it compared to what they're bringing in? And then on the other end, I can get fleeced through family court. You know, there are suggestions like prenups and things like that. The prenup has been derided for, you know, maybe not protecting men as much as it should. So that's where the debate kind of lies. My perspective on that is, you know, we have high value men who don't want to be monogamous because they don't see it as a fair deal. The dowry system solved this because the high value men would get a commensurate dowry, and that would wrangle them into monogamy. And then that would set the rest of the market in a way that makes sense. Established or not, avoid it. Coach talks about high value targets, so I'm not sure if he was just being non-biased there. Okay, yeah, he definitely does.
Your response, Andrew?
Yeah, I didn't hear any anti-marriage arguments. I heard anti-divorce arguments. So I'm with you on divorce, 100%.
Stream over.
And
But agree.
But it's a good thing that the topic isn't on divorce, it's on marriage. And it seems like you agree with my proposition then. And the proposition is that marriage, quote, is a great institution.
Yep.
And that right now your concern is that men can't be safe in marriage, but that's not actually what you're saying. You're not saying men can't be safe in marriage. They can. You're saying that they may not be safe in divorce. So I have a counter proposition for you.
That's an interesting way to put it. I mean, I don't know if I really fully agree. If by separating marriage and divorce like that, if you enter into a marriage, bargain with someone here with the state, and they can pull the divorce card anytime through no fault, you can't feel safe in the marriage because you kind of have the sort of Damocles above you if you're the one sort of footing the bill for everything, especially. And it's not even just money, even with things like paternity and stuff like that. But anyways, let's try to really hear out what he's saying.
My counter proposition is, what if it's the case that you can use religious marriage institutions without the state? And then we add the ecclesiastical structure.
Okay, so he's if I heard him right, he's saying, can we have marriage without the state?
Marriage institutions without the state. That you can use religious marriage institutions without the state.
Okay, and so he's going to call it an ecclesiastical structure. The one I'm familiar with is the covenant marriage. This is the sort of spiritual religious side of marriage. I don't know, I think you could say covenant marriage maybe specifically refers to Christian style covenant marriages, which are two people being married in the eyes of God, by the church, but separate from the state enforcement mechanisms.
And then we add the ecclesiastical structure of the marriage. That's what always kept them together anyway, before the state was ever involved. So what if instead we use...
See, that right there is a big statement. That's what always kept them together anyways before the state was involved. I think that glances over the incentives that the dowry system gives. If you're pairing two people together and they're negotiating for marriage and bargaining, here's the thing. When you look at the marriage process, going from ancient Athens all the way down, with some hiccups here and there, but all the way down through England in the 1700s and early 1800s, and France and Spain and Greece and Italy and Germany. We've gone through the sources anybody who's watching me knows. When the marriage is being negotiated, spirituality is the last really concern. It's, okay, what's either party contributing? What's her dowry? What's his station in life? What is he doing? What's his potential? Okay, he's a tradesman. We're going to use the dowry to help set up a shop. If he goes out of bounds, she can always sell the shop and get her dowry back. That's what they're looking at. Once they come to a deal and they get this marriage contract pounded out, that's when you go to the church and you get it religiously sealed, so to speak. So marriage makes sense when there's an economic, material aspect to it, but also a spiritual, maybe intangible aspect as well. And both of these things work together in a kind of masculine and feminine way. So he's saying it's mainly the spiritual aspect of this that kept it together. I'm saying, no, there's a fundamental material aspect of this, an economic aspect of this, which is intimately tied to things like property transmission, wealth, power structures, hierarchy, and all these kinds of things, which incentivize people to be monogamous and stay together. Because if someone broke that monogamous bond, they would lose in that marriage bargain. And we know from a lot of legal codes, if she's, somebody committed adultery, especially if she committed adultery, that dowry is going to stay within that marriage with the husband and that kid. She can forfeit that. And we've seen that written in legal codes. So there's one economic incentive not to do that. It's not even just the church on that end. So that's one thing I just wanted to point out. Orm says, this argument always boils down to one person saying what it should be and the other arguing what it is. Aram, I think that is kind of what ends up happening at this place. Andrew Wilson has been preaching that the Orthodox Christian Church should have jurisdiction over all marriages all over the world. That's very unlikely to happen. Dan the Man says, I think you can have marriage without the state, but what women would want that? They want the protection that the state marriage provides. That's true too. It's a tough sell. I really don't like how Andrew reframes the marriage problem as a divorce problem. If one party can initiate a divorce unilaterally, then the marriage problem is the divorce problem. Yes. That's the point I was trying to make earlier. So let's move in.
The ecclesiastical church, the structure of the old churches, that would be Catholicism and Orthodoxy, where you see the lowest divorce rates, because
back then, there used to be divorce in Europe during the Roman Empire. So they had understandings about that. And there was prescribed legal ways to go about that, complete with reasons and things. Then, as the church takes over, there's really no divorces, there's annulments. And you have your ecclesiastical courts, and at this time, the church had a lot more power and authority over that. So there were still legal codes and other, finery in terms of the legalities of all these things. But by and large, that's kind of what we saw. And then, around the time when what would be the United States is casting off the Church of England's grasp as they, revolt from the English, that's when you start to see the beginnings of an at-fault sort of order come in for divorce, because they did want... Americans from the inception of the country wanted to have divorce. The English church at the time, that was a no-no. So then we got separation of church and state. And it used to be that divorces happened at the state legislature if they were going to happen. Then that kind of moved into, courts, and they started to craft an at-fault system. Then when you get to, the 60s and 70s, I think it was 69, I can't even remember now, where we get no fault in California, then it changes again. So, just to point out some of this history here. Orem says I should have a castle in the clouds. Unfortunately, all I've got is a house. Andrew Wilson is arguing from his worldview. His worldview demands that the world submit to Orthodox monarchy, theocracy. This is from Luke. His worldview doesn't recognize the rest of the world existing and operating, being successful outside of his Christian world. He doesn't even acknowledge that marriage happened outside of his Christian church. Man could supersede the church by a private act of parliament and ask for a divorce, even though the church had jurisdiction over divorce. Mr. Pitt says, it's like telling someone that keeps losing at heads or tails. It's not that the coin isn't landing on heads, it's that it's not landing on tails. How is that helpful? I don't know. I'm having even trouble understanding that, but it sounds like it would be frustrating, Mr. Pitt.
Community puts pressure on the women to act right. That's what they do. Right now, the state applies no pressure on women.
I will say, okay, maybe there's something to be said about community pressure if they identify with the group. When you take a community like that and you put them, when you have a petri dish community like that, and let's say they're not in the petri dish, but they're surrounded by a bigger secular community whose laws, you know, supersede whatever the internal rules are of this community. There's a lot of outside pressure on those communities, and they give a lot of incentives and other paths for women to take if they want to leave. So it's tough. I mean, you'd have to be in a real tight-knit community for that to happen. It's possible, but at the same time, there's a lot of other options.
To act right? You can just go and file whatever you want, get a divorce, and go be banging the neighbor by the next night. We totally agree on that. But to say that we should abandon marriage is silly. It seems like you're completely pro-marriage. You're just anti-divorce. So why wouldn't you just throw your weight behind institutions where the divorce rate is the least, and you have an ecclesiastical structure which can be appealed to assist with that? That's what makes no sense to me.
My response to that is if we're fifths, we beat all drunk. All right. So that's a scenario that just isn't present.
Can you explain the analogy for me?
Well, if we use if, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. If we say if we have a situation where this is present, then this would work. Well, that makes sense. If we had that,
we do have it right now.
Well,
see, the problem here I think Andrew is trying to solve is he's trying to find a solution where if people all went towards that solution, it would create an incentive structure and upward momentum that would help solve this civilizational crisis, frankly, that we're in. And he's saying if people went to these religious institutions, it would do that. So what precludes that is you know, accepting this religion, becoming part of it and its beliefs, and if you hold firm to these belief structures, then it should solve the issue. You know, it's a solution. I don't know if it has enough power to do that truly. I tend to look at the economic side and say we need to create an economic incentive, a material incentive that can create an upward pressure. So if you have a lot of people having a tough time in the marriage market, and suddenly families maybe do something that's kind of dowry-esque, and they say, okay, let's endow our daughter with her inheritance at the time of marriage. So we got $150,000, and we'll give that to her. The son's going to wait for it on the back end. Then when the word goes around and says, you know, we're looking for a suitor for our daughter, she's ready to get married, and they throw that in there, that gives her a big edge in the market. If that helps her net somebody, other families would see that and say, oh, wait a minute. And that can create an upwards pressure. So just to offer, and I think a lot of this is going to be me trying to offer the economic, material, tangible side to Andrew's spiritual, religious, you know, side of this. Orem says, all the woman needs to do is quit the marriage, is just stop being religious. Not very comforting. Michael Sayin says, so pressure from the church works if the church is able to banish you from all church activities and friendships. Luke Nielsen says, the dirty little secret is that already happens, or the women just shut down and keep the man hostage using the church against him. Happens all the time in Catholic countries and Orthodox.
It doesn't necessarily work because, and I'm going to tell you why, because a woman can go to a divorce attorney and they can simply just say, hey, listen, it was a off the cuff, off the state divorce, but you got married within a certain state, or she filed in a certain state, so therefore the divorce goes on. No, absolutely, yes. Listen, I've been with the divorce attorneys, and what they'll tell you is, hey, listen, you can get married in a ritual, you can get married in the orthodoxy, you can get married off record, but if she files and that woman is hell-bent on saying, we got married, I don't care if it was a ceremony where we walked on coals with our feet bare, that's considered a marriage. You also have common law. You have a lot of other ways for that woman to establish marriage.
How does your way eliminate common?
You know, that's an interesting point from Coach. I'll say that's a little newer to me. There's common law, and then there's non-common law states. In common law, you know, they typically have some proofs or some things you have to demonstrate to the court that this person held out that it was a marriage or that they were a thing like that. So, yeah, that can happen in that sense. If you guys had a religious marriage, and you can say, yeah, we were married, and then the marriage codes would apply. In places, you know, like California, there is no common law. So, no, you guys were never legally married. And that's the case. I think Coach is trying to say that you know, you can still get sued with someone alleging that. That's probably true. People could sue for, you know, whatever the heck out here. But after some while, I think that it would, you know, be figured out, okay, they weren't actually married, you know. The bigger issue to me is going to be cohabitation. But even cohabitation without a marriage license still isn't going to apply the marriage part of the family codes. But the thing that people need to understand is that a lot of our family codes have been adjusted to accommodate for people who weren't married. You know what I mean? That's how you get child support and custody separate from just marriage. That's how you get paternity even. That used to be something that was just housed within the marriage laws. Marriage, frankly, was what created paternity for the father, because, okay, you were the legal father. You were recognized as the father because whatever your wife issued forth. Then when people kept having kids out of wedlock, we needed paternity laws to be adjusted and to essentially be wrestled from marriage, and created a new version of that to say this is how we establish paternity, which is different. Okay. Klaus says, as long as there is a financial benefit in divorce, there is no way any church on the planet could build enough pressure against divorce in a society like ours. In some Canadian provinces, cohabitation over a matter of months establishes common law. Michael Sand says, so in most common law marriages states, if you have a religious marriage, the woman can sue the man in family court and claim the marriage was a common law marriage and get unilateral divorce. It's like that over here too, but 2 years, and if a kid is involved, 1 year. Okay, that's what's happening in Germany. Okay. Now you're talking about what a male space has been saying in the Discord. Marriage established paternity and was critical to proper inheritance. Yes, exactly. And see, that's another thing, Luke. It's marriage outside of the spiritual stuff is about property transmission. That's the biggest thing here. And as families accumulate property, they all have this problem of passing the torch along in terms of what are we going to do with all this acres of land that we got, you know? So this is where marriage comes in to help solve that intergenerational problem. And this is why when Andrew says that there's no other reason to get married except for religious ones, I think he's missing that other civilizations also had to solve this problem of property transmission, which marriage, you know, plays a fundamental part in. So it's not just a spiritual endeavor. Not to say there isn't a spiritual aspect, but it's not the only thing. There's other stuff going on there.
I don't have any way to eliminate common law.
So
what
then,
I have is considered a marriage. You also have common law. You have a lot of other ways for that woman to establish marriage.
How does your way eliminate common law?
I don't have any way to eliminate common law.
So
what
then,
I have is a way for men to avoid
well, then the
being
argument's
used.
silly.
No, the argument's not silly. So here's what you have. You have a if proposition, which doesn't exist for most men. Most men aren't religious. Most men aren't looking to be under a religious orthodoxy. So it doesn't apply. So you're taking a moral standard or a religious standard to apply to people who aren't under that veil.
So let's start with a couple of things you said which are fundamentally untrue. Most men are religious, in fact, including in this country.
The other end of that is the women. So if the women aren't on board, then we're in trouble.
Most of them, not some of them.
But they're not religious.
Hang on. I didn't interrupt.
I understand, but maybe just take that point. Most aren't under your religion.
Okay.
We can agree with that.
So here's the thing, though. But Catholicism and Orthodoxy is growing rapidly. And if it's the case that the ecclesiastical structure is already there, which it is, right? If you're going to cohabitate with a woman, the thing that you're offering right now is common law marriage anyway.
See, he said if you're going to cohabitate. Cohabitation is a very important thing when it comes to family law, you know, and that determines a lot of things, especially as far as like custody goes. And it almost seems like the state looks more at cohabitation than anything else, as far as your relationship with the child. Were you in the child's life? Were you cohabitating together? Were you cohabitating when she got pregnant? That is an important thing. Okay, you guys were married, but then before the divorce could happen, you guys separated, and you guys were not cohabitating, and she got pregnant after that period. Okay, maybe you can be off the hook for paternity. You know, so cohabitation comes in and plays in these different ways. The state religion of the Russian Federation is Russian Orthodox. They still have a divorce rate greater than the U.S. Well, that's an interesting point. Right, Luke. Common law marriage existed in Europe before Catholic marriages. Marriages were not done in the church till much later in Rome and Europe.
If there's cohabitation at all, you're not protecting anybody from that. At least under my model, it gives an ecclesiastical structure that's designed to prevent divorce by applying community pressure. That was the way it was always done. Apply the application of community pressure.
Community pressure to stop divorce is also buttressed by community pressure for marriage. That community pressure comprised with things like dowry and inheritance. So when it came to incentivizing the kids, their children who were becoming adults to get married, they would say, you know, this is what you're going to get for your marriage. Here's what we can get you as far as a match goes. It wasn't like now where, you know, they can start taking pictures of themselves and put it on OnlyFans or whatever the hell they're going to do to make money. So there were, you know, maybe some avenues back then, but if you didn't go this direction, life was probably going to be very hard for you. Welfare wasn't really going to be there. You might be able to have some charities, or God forbid you end up in that building behind the tavern that starts with the B.
Within the confines of the woman's social circle. Right now, do you agree with me, for instance, that many divorces happen because women like to yap? So you get a freshly divorced woman, and she's free. You go, girl. Girl power. And she starts talking to her little friends, and she starts telling them how liberating it is and how great it is and this and that. And this is why when women have divorced friends, their likelihood of divorce actually rapidly increases. It's for this reason.
Divorce is contagious.
So if it's the case that this social contagion is eliminated because now we have an ecclesiastical structure, an ecclesiastical authority, which won't grant it because you get...
And I will say, this is a big leap from Andrew's part. You know, he's essentially establishing a lot of assumptions. So if we have this and it puts social pressure and it leads to stopping people from getting divorced, well, if you take all of those ifs and assumptions and say, yes, those are working, that's a lot to get from here to all the way over there and say, yes, it's going to work. If you have that, then sure, fine. But, you know, that's a big promise.
Ostracized from that social group through excommunication, for instance, or not being able to participate anymore with that community. That's an application of a serious and significant social pressure, which can do the very thing you want. Bring back that great institution.
See, getting excommunicated from that group kind of presupposes there's really nowhere else to go or no one else that's going to accept you. But if there's a lot of other groups outside of that, you know, in the secular world, that will incentivize them to leave or make them want to leave, then so be it. And then if you also have secular courts that don't care about religion and will still get half of the house, it's not like they get forced to leave and they leave with just the clothes on their back. They're still going to get the alimony, the child support, the house, and, you know, a good shot at custody. So, you know, I think Andrew has the onus of explaining how do we get to a place where those incentives for the women to leave are mitigated so that, you know, they don't do that. The only other way to do that is, you know, maybe by some miracle, if people, like 95% of people got religious and they all agreed on it, and then they said it's time to change the Constitution because 95% of us want to, and it's a living document, and let's add this amendment, and let's change these things, and let's remove these things and put these things in, then it's, you know, probably not really going to happen. So there's a lot of miracles waiting to happen here. My model to stop divorce is people just decide to stay together. Also, Andrew, if anything, women like to see each other miserable, so they lie about how happy it makes them. Don, men are enforcers, so nothing is enforced unless it is enforced by the men. So women need the community, otherwise polygamy exists and controlled by patriarchy. Klaus says it would be easier to just remove the financial benefit of divorce than move the whole population to Orthodox religion. Yeah, I mean, I think that's where it would need to go first. Now, you know, getting to a place culturally to get enough votes and support to make those changes is the challenge. You might say a religious predisposition might lead to that if I was going to be charitable to Andrew's side here. The debate starts to devolve from here. Really? Well, it just started.
Absent the state, and it avoids this whole problem of common law marriage. Because if it's the case that you can be common law married anyway, inside of a state, and they can, get grounds for divorce on that anyway.
I do find it odd that there's a lot of focus on common law. I know CGA brought that up, but not many states have common law, compared to the ones that don't. But, all right.
Then we actually need to have some social pressures to prevent them from doing that. So it sounds like we agree marriage is awesome.
See, he's saying social pressures. There also needs to be economic pressures. The economic pressures come from putting a baseline economic point that the woman needs to meet to enter into the marriage deal. And this is historically traditional with the dowry system. So they have in order to get to marriage, you have to meet a certain economic threshold of what you're contributing. Then when it comes to leaving the marriage, now you have incentive not to leave because you don't want to lose your investment in that marriage. It's a joint investment enterprise. It's not just the man provides.
For men, divorce is terrible for them. So it seems like we should be attacking the divorce structure here, and it doesn't seem like you actually have anything to do that other than just avoid the thing that's great for you, because this other bad side effect could happen.
Sure, that's
so
like
why don't
smoking
we,
cigarettes.
So why don't we attack the bad side effect when we have the mechanism to do it? It's not if, we can do it now.
Okay,
right
so like
second.
smoking cigarettes is the same analogy you're saying. Okay, here, cigarettes in this situation, we obviously know it has negative side effects, so you would avoid it. Now, here's the issue that I have with it. It sounds great on paper, but we can't travel to the land of make-believe. It sounds great. The majority of people probably wouldn't do it. And if you ask a guy, which this is an important part, they're not even prepared to even talk about that. They don't even know what divorce laws are. So you're asking them to travel to the land of make-believe under a marriage system that small percentage of people use. No one uses it today. You might have said they used it to the past. Today, that doesn't exist. So we can't travel to the land of make-believe to make marriage work for you. It might work in your marriage, but
I think this, if I'm hearing it correctly, CJ is basically saying we're not going back to traditionalism, where Andrew appears to be, advocating going back to traditionalism, and or at least becoming more religious, which implies a kind of traditionalism. But I could be wrong about that. Don't want to put words in people's mouth.
but it doesn't work for the greater structure.
Your argument here contradicts itself, because on the one hand, you say men don't know enough about marriage, but my assumption is that your mission is to let men know about marriage?
Absolutely.
Okay, well then, I don't understand how it's the land of make-believe if you can let them know about this, but I can't?
Sure.
Right,
And
so
you can offer that.
So if
You
I
can offer
am,
that.
it sounds like I'm offering a real alternative to what you're offering, and here's what you're offering. Men, marriage is great. It's a great institution. It's the best for children. These are your words. In marriage, right, men seem to thrive. Their health seems to thrive. Everything seems to thrive. You're saying, well, the problem is that divorce rates are high, and they are. However, there's a few things there that you haven't covered. One, it depends on demographic, too. For instance,
Absolutely.
if you're black, it's going to be way worse than if you're white.
Correct.
Okay? Way worse. And also, socioeconomics matters, right?
Oh, socioeconomics definitely matters. Yes, it does.
Your dowry, it's my right.
Demographics in general matter. So you can do a lot, actually, including prenuptial agreements. You can have a prenuptial agreement with the ecclesiastical authority without the state even involved, and it seems like that would mitigate your risk to damn near nothing.
You said if about 50 times
So did
today.
you.
Now, here's what I'm telling you.
So
I'm
did
telling you
you.
when, all right? We're already in this system. You're going outside of the system to create a scenario for me to argue
What
against.
system are you going outside of?
We're talking about marriage is typically done with the state. Almost everyone does it this way.
Typically
so now
is
you're
not-
hold
is
on for a
not
second. Hold on for a
must.
second. You've
Typically
moved the
doesn't mean
goalposts.
anything.
You've moved the goalposts to a scenario of
I see where Coach is coming in here. Coach is saying, hey, this is the situation we're dealing with. Frankly, this is why this whole space exists in the first place, because they're dealing with how our culture, which includes the laws, deals with marriage. How, what we sort of deem as a proper marriage, and the family laws and the family codes that govern the marriage. So Andrew has an onus, placed on him to explain how marriage can thrive within this, horrible environment of the family codes, in terms of the guy being the provider and then getting fleeced in court. Yo, Mad Villainy, shout out to you, man. Thanks for that song, bro. I played it earlier, bro. I really liked it. Fell asleep, but I'm up in here. No worries, man. No worries. I appreciate you chilling. Klaus says, also seen the Catholic Church over here is infiltrated by women and their demands. It would happen to the Orthodox Church just the same if it would get big enough to attract attention. That's an interesting point. You know, the bigger things get, they tend to change. They tend to change. It's like when you find that nice family restaurant, you know, and the food is good and you're like, wow, this actually is like made with real ingredients. I love this stuff. And I can feel the love when they put the portions of meat on there and everything. Then there's a second location. Then there's a third location. Then it becomes corporate and standardized. And then you're just like, man, this place sucks now. This place sucks. Now when I go in here, they got to like shake the scoop with the meat on it a bit so they can give me less. And then it's just like they're going to just pack a bunch of rice on it. What the hell am I doing in here anymore? Yeah, I mean, so it does change. It does change. That's a fantastic point. Michael Sane says, Andrew Wilson says the church should control marriage because marriage is a religious ceremony. Greg is like, but I am not religious. And where do you go from there? So utterly pointless. Andrew's just making up a scenario that would be nice, but doesn't exist. The Orthodox Church is already informed and bows to women. Yep, it doesn't and would be a hard thing to bring into existence. All churches bow to women. That is why we have this problem. Even Muslim women are rebelling. Okay, moving on.
And you're arguing from the if. No, hold on for a second. You're arguing from the if perspective.
It is perspective.
No, listen.
It is.
Give me a chance to listen.
Andrew's claim, I think, is in his religious community, these things are true. Now, I can't say whether they are or aren't. Maybe other people who are more familiar. Some of the folks in the chat have said that it's not true. A lot of the same problems exist there. So when he's saying, no, I am saying it's because maybe he's saying in his experience, he's seen good things and everybody can avail themselves of that. I definitely think you'd have some scaling issues. There would be some scaling issues.
All right, I'll give you a chance. Go ahead.
You're arguing from a very small percentage point. Now you're saying demographics, and we can talk about that, but you're still trying to get me to argue in your cloud of if. That's the land of make-believe. Most people, by far, are married to the state. Not only that, your land of make-believe still exists. The prenup with the ecclesiastics, you can write whatever you want in that prenup. It only matters in the divorce.
See, now I want to point something out about this word prenup, and they're both talking about it. Andrew has brought up the prenup at one point. I think he does later again. The prenup is only a thing that exists in order to mitigate the effects of hypergamy, right? If you're going through the dowry system with the traditional marriage contract, prenups are pointless because the way that marriage is negotiated and bargained for eliminates this problem of hypergamy because there would have been rejections if the contributions weren't matching or at least commensurate with what's acceptable for that class of people, that socioeconomic class. Prenups are something that really come in later, especially in the no-fault era, because and people don't like prenups because it acknowledges that, hey, I'm up here and you're down here, so we need something to fill in this gap so that, you know, I don't feel the worst of the effects of hypergamy. That's what a prenup is. Like, a prenup isn't this thing that goes back a long time. Those were the original marriage contracts. So something to pay attention to here. If Andrew's saying a prenup with an ecclesiastical marriage is good, that still is implying that the marriage is hypergamous. And I would say the issue is hypergamy. That seems to be what the manosphere complains about all the time. So how do you solve hypergamy? That's where the dowry system comes in.
Your dowry, it's my right.
Base says, I'm so sad. I had a reminder to come on time and I was still late. I'm sorry. Oh, it's all good, Base. Don't worry about it, man. I appreciate you coming in, man. And it's always a blessing to see you. I hope you're doing well. Thanks everybody who's here and enjoying. Appreciate the likes. We got 14 likes and 22 viewers. So thank you for that. The likes really help me. We're just having fun out here, Base. We're just enjoying ourselves, so no need. All right. Catholic Church, about 26% divorce rate. Statistics say Orthodox Jews, Orthodox Christians only divorce 10% of the time. Well, that's pretty low divorce rate. I'll say that. Catholic Church about 26%. All other Christian churches about 50%. Interesting. Prenups are overrated. You need to trust in an offshore account. In ice hockey, if I hit a guy, it stays on the ice. But technically, if the dude wants to go to the police, they can get the law involved. Same idea. Ecclesiastical hockey league be damned. That's a really cool metaphor. I actually like that. That's an interesting metaphor. I like it.
That's the reality. So I'm still dealing in reality.
So
You're
am
in the
I.
clouds. Hold on for a second. You're in the clouds. So let's take the demographics.
Okay.
In your scenario, it sounds like, which would be fair, your primary concern is with white people.
No, it's with
Hold
all
on for a
people.
second. You said with black people, the demographics, the chance is higher.
Yeah.
So have you discovered the ecclesiastics approach to black people married within this?
Yes.
However, their demographics, economics, which all do affect marriage, has nothing to do in the land of the clouds or the make-believe with ecclesiastics. It's all going to boil down to in the law. And there's no church reverend that's going to go into your household to make sure there's social pressure on your wife. Do you know
yes,
any?
sir. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you know any that can cover all marriages? That
Yes.
answer is no.
Yes. And by the way, when you keep
Are we in reality here?
I'm
or are we in
trying-
the clouds?
when
I mean,
you're-
we're
when
not
you're-
we're not arguing
I was
anything
just trying-
legitimate.
I was just
this
trying
is
to-
this is in the land of make believe.
Well, when
We
I'm
don't have
allowed to
enough-
respond, let me
Okay,
know.
give me a second.
Go
Let
ahead.
me finish this point.
Go ahead.
You're imagining. Your imagination is great. John Lennon would be great. You know, you would be proud of you at this particular point.
But I'm imagining all the people.
You're imagining all the people under a situation and a structure that you brought in here, all right? But the state highly governs this, and the state highly governs divorce. I'm dealing in a reality situation where I'm trying to counsel men to give information to. The best thing you've told me is that you're willing to give men the option to do this. Are they willing to all do this option? The answer is probably not, just like they're not willing to do what I'm telling them to do. However, we're both attempting, which is a good thing.
I will say, it's tough not to look at Andrew's solution and think, how is this different from the typical TradCon proposal? Being religious and then marrying within that institution, because there are a lot of nightmare stories from people who do that. The red pillars would say, that's the sort of prescription of man up and marry these Reform 304s, basically. So far his thing doesn't sound that different. I guess the assumption there is that the people you'd find in this community aren't like that. But if everybody comes rushing in with whatever their past or current situation is, that all has to be dealt with on a...
It's noble. However, your situation rarely exists. Can we talk about the reality of what exists?
Sure.
Absolutely. So let's take your moral religious crusade out of it and talk about the reality.
Yeah, let's
Are you
not.
willing to do that?
Yeah, well, here's the thing.
See, you're not willing to do that
Well,
because it's all based on your reality.
Guess what? It's a debate, and I will argue my points from my view, how I see fit. It's not for you to govern.
But what I'm not going to do is expect
not
to
my
be arguing
government.
from the land of make believe.
Yeah, but it's
okay.
not- you
all
don't-
right. So
okay,
anybody
yeah, my
have
turn, my turn,
Anybody
relax.
have anybody have the sound effect for the television show where the train comes through, Mr. Rogers?
Let me know when
because
you-
I want to be on.
let me know
I
when you
want to be
gas
on
out.
Earth.
Yeah, let me know
All
when you
right.
gas
Let's
out.
let Andrew respond.
So, that's interesting. Coach is asking, hey, let's just talk about marriage from the point of view of the law. I guess you could say the secular stuff outside of just his religious worldview. Andrew doesn't want to do that. His contention might be that religion plays a big role in all this. B. Alexander says this is cringe. Michael Sand says Marxism did not believe in marriage. They hated marriage. They considered marriage an enemy of the state. No-fault divorce was created by Marxism in Russia in 1917. And, an interesting reason for that would be because the way private property interfaces with marriage, you can say. You know what I mean? So as people start to break marriage, you kind of end up with, well, if we're not going to be doing marriage and, people aren't going to own anything, and people are going to be here one day and here the next, and paternity doesn't matter because now I'm here and now I'm there and whatever the heck it is, that kind of pushes you to a kind of Marxism, I guess you can say, because now everybody's just part of the herd. You know what I mean? We all want to own everything, that means we got to just everybody pays for everything. So that's on the other end of the pendulum in a way, you know. Interesting. Bay says the nightmare story, being stuck with a woman that hates you. They don't want to take the Zers pill that women need to be better people. Shout out to the Zers pill. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing too. Like, and you're right, you know, even if you have all these motives and incentives in place, if one person hates the other or resents the other, that's a crap situation in the home also. And you know, people have to be able to respect each other at the very least, to get something, you know, going on. Good evening. Hey, shout out Oikophobic. Good to see you. Andrew quickly goes into petulant child territory. Klaus says CGA is right. The state has an interest in getting the men on the hook, and he would do the same with ecclesiastical marriages if this would get too big to ignore. The government in America hates marriage like Marxism. Divorce puts women in the workforce and increases the family's tax and doubles the workforce without increasing the number of people. Yeah, I think you're right. There are these short-term economic benefits. This is really disappointing. Andrew isn't usually this dumb. Jermaine Smith, the background on Andrew Wilson is wild and nothing like what his persona is on these platforms. Shout out to you, Jermaine. I think this might be my first time seeing you, but thanks for being in here. Yeah, a bit of a blind spot for him, I guess. Kyle Wells. Hey, shout out Kyle Wells. Good to see you, man. I'm not an anti-natalist, and I would never presume to tell anyone how to live. However, I have to say that the lack of desire to ever have kids makes the marriage question even easier to answer. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I would agree with that. I think if people don't want to have kids, marriage may not be. I don't know. The question would be, what would they get from it? Then you could have these religious, spiritual things, but I don't know. That's a tough one. But I can see people who don't want kids not having much interest in marriage. Maybe that's a better way to state that. Yep, that makes it much easier.
Yeah, so the thing is it's funny that you bring up Imagine All the People of John Lennon, which is an anti-religious song. And hilariously enough, was designed to assist with female empowerment. Isn't that hilarious? But the thing here is you keep on saying that what I'm offering is make-believe, but it's not. It's been governing the Orthodox and Catholic Church for 2,000 years, including in this country. Now, here, let me give you an example, for instance, the Amish, right? Do you know what the divorce rate is among them? It's almost non-existent, yet they're still governed by the same laws of the land that you're speaking to. So
I would love to learn more about the Amish. I think Pearl was talking about doing a kind of on-the-ground sort of journalism there with the Amish community. I would be really interested. I don't know if they do dowries or not, but I have a sneaking suspicion that the parents are heavily involved in who gets married. Because it's like, how would you keep that community going without parental involvement in the marriage process? And I think with that comes community involvement in setting up the home for the new couple. My suspicion is that the marriages and divorce, the marriage rate is good and the divorce rate is low because the community comes together to really help them start their home. You know what I mean? So it's like the community is there to help the husband get a good job. The community's there to help the couple get married young in order to get a home. But I don't know if we have any like evidence that the Amish do actual traditional dowries, but my suspicion is that the parents on both sides are heavily involved in setting up the marriage for their kids. And that right there is already something I think that would, lead to a marriage that lasts a long time, in order to be part of the community.
sounds like if I give a counter, if I say, look, I can give you a way, a methodology in which you can utilize the religious ecclesiastical institution which has existed for 2,000 years and has right now the lowest.
Okay, 2,000 years. Sorry, I forgot to put it back here. If we're talking about 2,000 years ago, then, I mean, you know what that brings up.
Your dowry, it's my right.
There was a dowry or a bride price.
Mm-hmm. So,
which one of these broads has the richest father?
Yeah. What's the dowry situation?
Exactly.
Let's get down to brass tacks here.
So, I mean, this 2,000 years ago. So if he's saying what the church is doing today is what they've been doing for 2,000 years, I think that's still fundamentally lopsided. You're missing something else that they've been doing for 2,000 years that really helped solve this problem of hypergamy and incentivize people to stay together. Kyle Wells says, let's also not forget about the hordes of people essentially LARPing as Christians, religiously affiliated, no shortage of people wearing crosses around their necks that are anything but holy. Yeah, and to be fair, you see that with a lot of religions. That's true. Oh, I forgot he brings up the Amish. Not a great example, another far removed from main society example. Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's another point. Yeah, you'd have to forego a lot of different technologies and stuff. Because, I mean, if I have it right, the Amish people, they are very limited with technology. Like, they don't believe in using certain things. Shout out to the Amish folk. Monogamy promotes equality. The church pushes patriarchy. These two are diametrically opposed to each other. That is why they fight over marriage jurisdiction. The crucifix necklace may be the original form of virtue signaling. That's interesting. I could kind of see that. I wear a crucifix, but it is not visible. What do you think of the debate so far? Hey, coffee enjoyer. Make me want a coffee right now. You know, I think it's an interesting debate. I know a lot of people said that this thing went kind of sideways, which I probably couldn't argue with them so much, but it's still interesting to watch. I mean, I'm enjoying watching it, and it does something to maybe highlight the differences in these viewpoints at least, and where they're not connecting, maybe what they possibly have in common. Have we gotten anywhere to a place of better understanding in this debate? Not yet. Not yet. I can respond to Andrew with, what if she leaves and no one actually cares, to just about anything he says? All right, moving in.
Rates. Right this second, in which you can utilize the religious ecclesiastical institution, which has existed for 2,000 years. And has right now the lowest divorce rates. Right this second as we speak. Not in make-believe land, not hundreds of years in the future. Right this second, as opposed to the system you have of common law divorce, which is sky high and you can't do anything about it. That's what is true. So pointing out what is true is right now you can have a prenup. That is true. What is true is prenups are usually held up in court. That is true. What is true is that you can have a marriage outside of a state because it's a religious institution anyway. You never have to have a license with the state.
You know, you can have a covenant marriage. Yes, I would say that's true. You know, you can have a covenant marriage. You didn't sign the state, marriage certificate and get the state license, but you guys both had a humble ceremony, and the religious, folk official was there, and they, solemnized the marriage, or whatever you call that. Base says, well, worse than that, what if she leaves and then they blame you for her leaving? I mean, yeah, that's actually one point that's interesting, right? Because in a lot of places where there's a lot of community shame and reputation matters a lot more, you will sometimes see a demonization of one person by the other because they have to save face within that community. So they might demonize him and accuse him of being a horrible person. And it sounds like from what Andrew's saying, because he's kind of saying if they end up going against it, they will get sort of excommunicated anyways, which you can almost say implies that there's demonization that goes one way or the other. And it's almost a race to like, who can pull the demonization card first. So yeah, that's a concern, Base. Thank you for that. In a sense, yes. LOL, I don't advertise my beliefs. I do acknowledge it if it is relevant. I like that, Luke. I'm the same way. I've never believed in really just being in everybody's face about it. But I bet you are an army hat, Luke, on your birthday. But I bet you are an army hat, Luke, on your B-Day. Shout out to Luke, by the way. Happy early birthday. I don't know how a guy as smart as Andrew can't see that his solution to marriage requires a gargantuan overhaul that most people in society are unwilling to commit to. Yeah, it would take a lot. Regardless of the marriage, if you represent yourself as married and she takes you to court, the state is in control. Listen, man, even if you don't represent yourself at marriage, like the court's looking at, did you hold yourself out, as the father of these kids? They probably won't have spousal if it's not common law, but there will be child support. There's a kind of pseudo alimony that occurs through child support. That is a thing. So we have all the family codes apply to male-female breeding relations one way or the other, whether you're married or not. I think they both agree marriage sucks today for men anyways. In fairness to Andrew, my ex avoided filing because of how it would look with our church. In fairness to Coach, she still filed for divorce. Well, dang it. I thought you were going to... I was like, oh, that's good. And then it ended on that. You know, I will say, man, I do believe marriage is good. And I wish that the people who want to be married can get married in a way that makes sense. For me, a lot of it hinges on this idea of negotiating a marriage proper. And if you do that in a way that can help mitigate some of these issues, then, you know, that's the better. Yes, there's still vulnerabilities here and there, but I don't know, man. I just think that's, you know, family life, I think is a blessing if you can get it. But at the same time, if there's not a deal that doesn't make sense, then don't take a bad deal. If you're willing to take a bad deal, then take a bad deal. You know, I hope it works out. Maybe I'm being convoluted here. I'm just trying to say that I think marriage is good, but we have been negotiating it completely wrong. That's the other side that isn't actually addressed in this whole mess of an argument labeled debate, property, children, etc. Yes. Yeah, exactly. In society where social person is important, when a religious man gets divorced, his social circle acts like Job's friends. Before no-fault divorce, unmarried men were considered unfit to raise children by some state laws. My ex was inhibited by her desire to look good to the church, but she filed and slandered me instead. Yeah, well, see, that's what Base was talking about. She is still looked at as a martyr and the victim. And that's the part that really sucks, because then there's an incentive to do that. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I have to have a good reason for leaving. So it really needs to make sense. Like, he needs to be the bad guy. This is what I was essentially trying to convey. Plenty of people like to think of themselves or will portray themselves as an adherent to religious principles and ideology. Yeah, see, this is where the cosplaying comes in. Yeah, very true, Kyle. Yep, she can either not care or reframe it so you're the bad guy. Shah will tell you, when babies started to be made out of wedlocks, the court started to change their minds and claim men have a claim to share raising the children so they could go after his money. That's exactly what happened. That's literally what created the child support system. They needed to say, we can make men to be legally the father in order to go after the financial side of the whole thing. But anyways, yeah, let's go and just get back into this.
It's never been necessary, and if you do, the only way that can be done is if it's sacramental. And if it's sacramental, it's governed now by the church. That's going to be the community the women are a part of. And so the thing is like, that sounds like a real viable solution. What's yours? More fucking degeneracy? Go out and play the field? Hump a lot of chicks? How's that going to help anybody do anything? That's been the...
You know, to give Andrew credit, you know, I can acknowledge that, and I say this all the time too, and I know Coach isn't probably so much about the red pill, but a lot of the red pill stuff is really just maximizing short-term potential. It hasn't solved the long-term issue. Andrew is trying to solve the long-term issue. I think Coach Greg Adams has a little bit more of a pessimistic view on the whole thing. He'll say, you know, the dating market is monetized, and he'd advise men paying up front instead of paying on the back end, which is, you know, many times worse, which is very true. Very true. You know what I mean? So I think Coach in his own way is trying to give men a long-term plan for themselves. Does it lead to family and children? No. Andrew still has the burden of showing that his long-term plan leads to strong, you know, thriving families.
The progressive mantra for 100 years.
Hey, hooking up with chicks is fun. Sacramento, like temple ordinances in the Mormon church, ROFL means nothing.
Isn't going to help anybody do anything. That's been the progressive mantra for 100 years. Isn't it wonderful?
I will say, pulling away from marriage and doing a marriage strike, and that's written in Dr. Stephen Baskerville's book. This idea that a temporary marriage strike could at least give men more leverage in negotiating some of this stuff, whether it be changes in laws or the cultural view on how we do marriage. Andrew seems to say, well, if you join the community, just go for marriage, it's going to be better. But to be honest, like Coach advising men to stay away if it's a bad deal, I don't think is entirely bad, because the more men who do, society is going to have to do something to incentivize men to come back. But if men come back without society having to change anything, that's a problem, because that's just more guys in the meat grinder. You want them to say, oh my God, we need to get men back in here. How can we make this a sweeter deal for the men? The conversation of gold pill and the dowry is pretty much saying, okay, let's be MGTOW, but we're open to come back. Here's our offer we're putting on the table if you want to get us back.
Your turn.
All right.
Klaus says, if the church puts pressure on women not to divorce, that will only incentivize them to make false abuse claims, and nothing will be gained. I wonder what Rollo thinks of Andrew's solution to sexless marriage under the Orthodox Church. Rollo says you can't negotiate desire. Andrew says the local council will basically pressure her into sex. Well, if that's really kind of how he's characterized, like what he's saying, yeah, I don't think that's going to work. You know what I mean? The man and the woman need to have respect for each other, I think, for that to work in the bedroom. But saying, oh, it's, you have to have sex with him. It feels kind of icky to me. I don't think that's gonna work. By the way, shout out to the 34 people watching, and thank you to the 18 people who have hit the like button. The like button helps me a lot. And thank you to the folks that left super chats. Appreciate that, of course. Gold pill is the answer to the sexual chaos of the West. The goal is to deal with the hypergamy issue. But thank you, MS. I appreciate that. Mr. Pitt, marriageable, allowed under coverture law in U.S. and Europe. DM the man says, if I remember correctly, Jeff Younger, oh yeah, I follow him on Twitter. The guy who was fighting for his son, they were doing the gender change thing on him. And he won custody at first in Texas, but then she took the kid to California and the court sided with her in or she moved it to a different county in Texas first, even though he had won in another county. It's really crazy what happened. Was an Orthodox Christian. Oh, he was an Orthodox Christian. Oh, okay. Look what happened when he got divorced. Oh, I didn't realize that. I didn't see much of the community helping him out. Well, that's a good point, Dan.
We're returning back to earth. Now, first things first. When it comes,
Mr. T says social pressure on women is exactly what led to feminism. That's an interesting point. Shout out to you, Mr. T. All right, let's hear what Coach is going to say.
All right, we're returning back to earth. Now, first things first. When it comes to this, back in reality, there's no God in marriage. So, Mr. Sky Daddy, God, religion, that's all great, but there's no God in marriage.
See, I know that's something that probably people on the religious side don't want to hear, because they do believe that. When you're at a wedding and they're talking about God and the religious person is there and they're saying this thing, it's a beautiful thing, damn near bring a tear to your eye. Almost gets me every time, I tell you. I once went to a wedding. It was a coworker. This was a while ago, and I was doing photos for them. And I remember, the pastor there, I think is what you would call him, and he was there, and he was just like, if you put God in the center of your marriage will be successful, or will not. Your marriage will, not fail. And he repeated that like 3 times. If you put God in the center of your marriage will not fail. So I know the religious folks look at it as, yes, no, God is within marriage. That's the only way this works. I think what Coach is saying is that as far as the true legal marriage institution we have now, this idea of, especially when it comes to no-fault divorce. How could you have no-fault divorce and then say religion has anything to do with that kind of a marriage structure, right? That's what Coach is talking about. Let's see. I don't know if it's allowed to be typed or not. I don't think so. I mean, it's best to be, precaution. I would just say grape. Free Jeff Younger, stop the John Money experiments. Indeed, they were married in the Orthodox Church. Wow, didn't realize that. Angel Berber, Andrew is friends with Myron, Rollo, and Sartain. He was just on the Red Pill Avengers on Wednesday, so he has had these discussions with all of the top Red Pillars. Angel, thanks for coming in. I don't know if I've seen you before, but appreciate you. With this freedom that women have, how in the world will they be convinced or pressured to adhere to religious structures? That's a fundamental question. We have discussed that before, the idea of freedom, and where freedom fits into this whole thing. And to be honest, it's been this slow sort of push into freedom that has kind of unleashed a lot of this disorder in a way. It used to be in the time of the romance, it used to be, the dowry system was bad. We want to marry each other because we love each other, even though we don't come from the same class. And the happy ending at the end of the movie was the man and the woman got to marry. Oh my God, it's beautiful. And somehow the community accepts it. So for a long time, that was the happy thing. And then they get to be married to who they want to. And then it changed again. Then it was like, oh my God, I married who I want to, but marriage is oppressive. I can't be in here anymore. I need to be able to divorce. So it's like, whenever you give someone something, they want to take more and more and more. They want to keep, if you give them an inch, they want to take a mile. It used to be, okay, let's abolish the dowry system. Let's let love be the center point of marriage. Then it's like, oh my God, no matter what you do, marriage is oppressive to women. And people just want to be able to be divorced and live in their own house and have tea parties with their friends that don't involve their husbands being in the next room smoking cigars with those people's husbands. I don't know. I would disagree that there is no God in marriage. As a fact, it can be such, but doesn't necessarily mean God isn't there if invited by both parties. Yeah, no, I do agree that there is a spiritual aspect to this that I respect. Mr. T, feminism was created by the women's suffrage movement desire to dismantle coverture law starting in 1848. Legal marriage isn't beholden to God. In the 21st century, you are both married by the state, as you have to register the marriage with the state, and the state has the power to dissolve marriages in the state and take men's kids. Typing that word into the chat is inadvisable. You obviously weren't trying to tank the channel, but try not to use it. Thank you, Mr. Pitt. Women are excommunicated from churches for filing for divorce unlawfully. Okay, let's move back in here.
At this particular point, when you go through a marriage, if one person decides to not obey the Holy Bible or whatever you're thumping, you have no basis to keep that marriage together. If she decides to leave the church and decides not to listen or excommunicate herself, she's now under the state.
Agree.
Now, when you're getting divorced, which I'm assuming you've been divorced.
Well, I mean, that's a hell of an assumption to make.
Have you been divorced?
Well, I mean,
have you been married?
Can you tell me, if you can tell me how that has any merit?
Give me a second, because if you've been through one, you would know that there's no God in the divorce court, in the family court. There's no God in there. No one asked you.
There is the state in there.
There is the state.
Yeah, but the state, as separate from anything ecclesiastical, it's the state family code.
So that's what we're arguing for.
Yeah,
that's when you get married. So you're telling me if, and I'm telling you, well, this is what's going to happen. Even if you took Sky Daddy into court with you, they would say, you pray to the judge. The judge is the authority in the court. So the God argument is a nice, interesting argument. And I probably am not going to stay on the conversation very long, because that's your God. That's your Sky Daddy. Okay. That's your religion. I have a different religion. So who gives you who gives you the authority to change the understanding, the conversation to your religion? That's your religion.
I'm not changing the conversation.
Okay, so it only works if it only works if you believe in your Sky Daddy. That's the only way it works, and that's the only way you're going to advise men.
We're talking about mitigating risk.
No. We're talking about, can men get into a marriage today only under your Sky Daddy? That's what we're assuming.
Okay.
Now, can they do it otherwise?
Yeah, you can have secular marriage.
Okay, go ahead and explain.
Okay, yeah,
make it work.
I just did. So
make it work.
The argument that you have is that marriage is great. It's a great institution.
We already covered this.
Well, what made it great?
We already covered this.
What made it great?
Can we go into why it would make it work for your secular? That's the question I ask you. You're asking me questions back. Go ahead and and answer the question.
So if you're talking about secular marriage, there's never been any point to it.
I'm sorry.
See, that's a That's a really odd point to me. I don't know what he means by that. You know, marriage has been the points of marriage is supposed to be this thing where two people come together and they both end up in a better position than they otherwise would have if they stayed apart. And it's like a mutual enterprise or investment that leads to a more efficient vehicle of living, especially for bringing in children. And property transmission is very important here. You know, so when it comes to the point of marriage that isn't entirely about, you know, a spiritual aspect, when people complain about divorce, what they're mostly complaining about is, you know, there is the emotional stuff, but it's also money, and I got fleeced by that. Most of the guys in the Manosphere Court have been sharing notes on that, aside from the emotional stuff. I agree that is there. But when the divorce happens, what they're deciding on is what happens to the money, what happens to the property, what happens to the assets of the marriage. And marriage is supposed to be this thing that protects assets and property, you know, for people and their children. That's why you have legitimate children and illegitimate children. The legitimate children of your wife have a claim to these, you know, assets and property, versus the illegitimate children who then wouldn't be able to come in and say, well, I want, you know, part of the house inheritance too, at least back then. Thereby, the wife benefits from being married to the husband because her children, which are legitimate from that marriage, will have these benefits. And I guess when he says that, I just think it's weird, because I think people would still be incentivized because of property, status, power concerns, economic concerns, material concerns, especially if you live in a stratified society with some people that has private property. If we were living in a communist, like if we're all just part of a big herd and there's no class and we just live off the fat of the land and follow the herd, you know, I don't know what the point of marriage would be then, frankly, because it's like, we don't care about paternity, right? Secular marriage, also another big reason would also be for paternity establishment, saying, okay, yes, these are the children of the husband. Then when it comes to property transmission, it's being transmitted to his children. So it's a really odd thing to say. Sorry, I missed a lot of chats here. I actually disagree with Andrew a lot here. Secular marriage still protects children. Economically, you're right, Shah, as well. Yeah, it's just very odd. You are literally having a conversation related to divorce, Andrew. Your experience with marriage divorce is very relevant. AI Google, the phrase marriage is honorable in all is a quote from the Bible, specifically Hebrews 13:4, which advises that marriage should be held in honor by everyone. Andrew Wilson is wrong on stating that a secular marriage is not a valid marriage. Non-Christian civilizations have had lasting valid marriages for millennia. Well, yeah, that's true. Listen, even if they had religions with those civilizations, it entirely has to do with these property concerns, with status concerns. You know, if you live in a society and you're concerned with these things, when it comes to monogamy, for instance, you want people to know that you and this woman are married so that everybody knows you're off the market. It's taboo to, you know, interfere in that marriage and sleep with these people or whatever it happens to be. And the reason they're doing that is because there's benefits of them saying no to outsiders of their marriage, especially when it comes to their children and when it comes to their property and their labors and all these kinds of things. So secular marriage, I think, is very valid. It's definitely, and it creates a distinction between those who are married and aren't married. Yeah, you got that false info from a radical progressive feminist called Tree of Logic, also known as Tree 411. She has disseminated that false, unverified info throughout the space. I understand what Andrew is trying to say, but I think that's a bit harsh to say. Marriage is pointless without religion. Even if you are not religious, I still think religion is what most good moral framework is derived from. You know, and if you don't even want to say moral, at the very least, it leads to a structured, ordered type of living, which is better than the kind of chaos. You know what I'm saying? So I do think it's fundamental, or perhaps common sense teaching in general a lot of the time. Thank you, Coffee. God believes that marriage laws will be honoring to God in most states naturally. It's unnatural for God to honor marriage unless God honored the state in marriage. I tend to agree, no putting the toothpaste back in the tube. What I do think will have to happen is an eventual renegotiation of their social contract, possibly after some sort of collapse. I think a lot of people see it that way. You know, I actually follow Andrew Wilson's wife on Twitter, and I saved a tweet from her. I think she agrees with that sentiment. I saved it because it kind of reminded me of something that a lot of the space say. Like, this seemed kind of pessimistic. Women are voting for communist gays and Muslims in huge numbers, and the stupid right-wing conservatives can only come up with, maybe we should pander to women more. We haven't done enough of that over the last 100 years. It's over. And then she says, I'm seriously about to lose my S over this. There just is absolutely no getting through to these people. They will never get it. So you see what I mean? Like, Andrew is saying, hey, if we convince all these people to join this belief system, and that's going to be good. On the other hand, here, she's just like, it's kind of hopeless. So, I mean, in a weird way, if CGA is saying traditionalism isn't coming back, especially not your brand of it, is he wrong? I don't know. I don't think he's wrong. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. I noticed that, and then thinking about it in the context of this debate, maybe it was a tweet of frustration, but I found that odd. I found that strangely to even, kind of say, if you can't get through to these people, then can you bring traditionalism back in that way?
Sorry, there's never been any point to secular marriage, ever. Never.
I think this is just Andrew's kind of like hot take. This is the attention grabber take right here. I think all of us are like,
What would ever be the point of secular marriage? It's always been
property transmission, status, children, order and structure in a given society, power alliances.
Religious institution. That's what made it great. Now, when you say it's a great institution, what made it great for secularists, other than the fact that Sky Daddy and God had all these enforcement arms, and those things had to be enforced socially? Like, for instance, men weren't allowed to run away. And women, right, they had to show cause for these divorces. And they had to be good causes. They had to show it for things like infidelity, right? It was all biblically governed. It was all lawfully governed by this Sky Daddy guy you like so little. But that's what made the institution great in the first place. And what you're talking about here, you're making a point that divorce is bad. And yet, I agree, divorce is bad. So what we're really talking about is, how do we mitigate the risk for divorce?
I wish Andrew would say, how do we mitigate hypergamy? The real issue is how do we push back on hypergamy in society? Because when you look back at what created the civilization we have, it was a well-ordered, structured society that had a system of incentives that mitigated these hypergamous impulses. And not just from women, but also on the man side too. We've spent a lot of time discussing the dowry system and how marriage transactions worked, especially in civilizations where hypergamy is a concern because of class differentiation, wealth differentiation, and private property ownership. So, when Andrew says this, I wish he would say, how do we mitigate for hypergamy? But let's hear what he said.
Divorce is bad. So what we're really talking about is, how do we mitigate the risk for divorce?
Mitigating the risk for divorce, I think, wouldn't be as fundamental as mitigating hypergamy. I think the question, every time you hear anything from the manosphere, they're complaining about women's hypergamous nature, and they got all these reasons, and it's the nature of the woman, the biggest, strongest man, and the blah, 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 blah. Even though men have been hypergamous also. That's where the proiketeres came from. But the question really is how do you solve the hypergamy issue? So, interesting. The Financial Frontier USA. How is Andrew going to get women to join his religion and live life according to his construct? Eve still decided to leave God's instruction and do as she pleased. Free will is the trump card. Well, yeah, I mean, that's a great point. And then also, given in the fact that we live in a society that celebrates freedom, you know, when 4th of July comes around and they're out there with the sparklers, they're usually talking about freedom. That's what all them songs say. Shout out to you. Thanks for being here. Gosh, I'm just going to get back into it, guys.
And we have two different methods here.
Well, the conversation
Hunter's
is marriage good for men.
Real quick, I just want to give him a shout out. Thanks for being in here. Gonna sleep and catch the replay tomorrow. Thanks, Shah. No worries, man. Thank you for coming in and saying hello. I appreciate that. The state gives the church jurisdiction over marriage. That is how the Church of England and the Catholic Church got jurisdiction over marriage. That's an interesting point. So the church allowed them to have that, or the state allowed the church to have that. Interesting. Luke Nielsen says, Andrew's religion also pushes monasticism as the only real choice outside marriage too. Whole lot of not being fruitful and replenishing the earth stuff. They almost worship monastics.
That's the conversation.
But it is. We already said it's good for talking about is how do we mitigate the risk for divorce? And we have two different methods here.
Well, the conversation is marriage good for men. That's the conversation.
But it is. We already
said. So
said.
long as marriage is hypergamous, if there's no protections for that it's already bad if it's a hypergamous marriage, regardless of the protections. If the marriage was not hypergamous, then I don't think you'd have to even worry about mitigating for divorce and all this stuff. It would just make sense from the get-go. So if most marriages today are encouraged to be hypergamous, that's a problem. And that would say that marriage is bad for men because men are on the losing end of that hypergamous deal. Female hypergamy will be tempered to a great extent under the gold pill and dowry system. Women, if they want to marry, will have skin in the marriage. Exactly. And what does that do? That creates an incentive to stay married. All right? Because if you lose your investment in this marriage, your marketability, you know, on the going out there is going to be way less, and you're going to lose a lot of your investment. There's just a reason to not screw up what you're helping to build. If one person's building and the other person isn't, it's a lot easier to pull the ripcord on that. Thank you, MS.
It's good for men. That's not even a dispute.
And now, how do we make it better since they're avoiding it? Since men or women are avoiding it.
It sounds like the thing that you think makes it bad is divorce, not marriage.
Correct.
Then
Listen,
we need to mitigate divorce.
We're 15 minutes in, and we are in the land of reality. You finally called up. Can you tell me how we can get to the secular marriage? I mean, I've given you a chance. So you're dragging your feet.
So again, secular. There's never been any point to secular marriage ever.
Now listen, marriage is for child creation. It would be great for child community and all of these things. And now
I do wish he would have added property. Now, you know, that's probably in there with children, but property transmission, you know, status, alliances.
Listen, by the time the religious
assertive marriage is the opposite of hypergamous marriage, right? Yes, like I think they would say positive assertive marriage. So that implies that it's assorted and goes, you know, with matching pairs from top to bottom. So the tops are matching, the middles, and then the lower sections. But yes, you can say that. Did I miss one? Exactly. This still requires buy-in and compliance from women. Otherwise, you're just Batman adhering to no-kill rules while surrounded by psychos who have no reservations about killing. The United States already said they will no longer allow the church to have jurisdiction over marriage. There would need to be a state church. The Constitution will not allow a state-appointed church. Yeah, I mean, that's what I meant when I said, like, you would need to have a religious revival where, like, 90% of the people believe the same thing. Then you can have, like, a critical mass reach where you can actually go through the state machinery to then amend the Constitution. But if you don't have that, then, you know, it's, you know, you're not going to be able to put forth, you know, what they want to do. So the state's still going to have that power. Thanks for that, Michael. Secular marriage, point number 1, paternity. Number 2, wealth transfer through inheritance. Absolutely. It all has to do with property. And it becomes really important. It has to do with labor, with property, you know, paternity. All these things are very important. Yo, Mr. T with the super chat. Thank you so much, man. Very generous. I appreciate that. Rights and freedoms without duty and accountability leads us to what we have today. Yep, that's true. It is possible for the individual states to have a state-appointed church. However, the courts have already decided the separation of church and state as precedent.
Aspects got into marriage
It's
and
not
all
just
of
for
these
that.
things. And now listen, by the time the religious aspects got into marriage, they were chopping people's heads off and burning Bibles. So listen, I know we want to take it back to the past and act like the past was better, but there's always a negative part of the past. If you go back and you look at the English, this has all been there. People were getting their heads chopped off. The Crusaders were doing their things across countries, and they were spreading Christianity through threats and
what does that have
violence.
to do with anything?
Now, that's what you're trying to uplift. That's what you're trying to uphold.
I don't even know what the hell you're talking about.
You wouldn't know what I'm talking
I
about.
think Coach is saying that he's saying you're trying to bring back a particular aspect of traditionalism. And he's saying the only way you can bring back one aspect of traditionalism is if you bring back the entire, and if you bring back all the aspects, all the context around that one aspect that you want to bring back. Otherwise, it's not truly organic to the situation. It's not properly nested in reality. So you want to bring back this aspect of traditionalism, but if you don't bring back all the aspects of it, then it's fated to fail, in a way.
I don't.
That's where you're lacking.
I have no
so
idea.
catch up. You're sitting in the
What
cross
does the
from me. I
Crusades
want
have
you
to do with divorce?
That was when your holy marriage was the best marriage that you're trying to go to. Now listen,
In the
if we're trying to drag it back-
1950s? Were we crusading
No,
in the
no, no.
1950s?
No, 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 no. You
What the hell are
talked
you talking about?
You talked about the institution of marriage for 2,000 years.
Yeah.
Sir, do you?
That's a fair point on Coach's part, yes, because he did bring up the church being involved for 2,000 years and that it worked. Now he went back to 50. So Coach is saying, well, if we're talking about 2,000 years ago, there's all this other stuff in there.
There was a dowry or a bride price.
You need me to catch you up on what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
but
You're having trouble
you know what
keeping up
marriage-
with me.
do you know what
You're
marriage was
having
like
trouble
50 years
keeping up
ago?
with me. You said
I am.
2,000 years ago.
Truly,
and
your
I told you
intellect is
2,000
dizzying.
years ago, they were chopping people's heads off.
Which has what to do with
I
anything?
need you to catch up with me, sir.
Okay.
If you want to take things back to the past, you have to accept everything as the past. You can't just
there you go.
cherry pick. Now,
What?
here's the thing. Past, you have to accept everything as the past. You can't just cherry pick. Now, here's the thing.
And this is a lot of where the cosplay annoyingness comes in, right? Because someone's cosplaying because we know our environment is not organically making these kinds of people. It's like an act. Doesn't feel genuine, and it just doesn't mesh with the realities of the world that we live in on a technological level. But I'm not against Andrew's goal of trying to establish something that works, and even in a religious way, but it can't. It has to be in a way that's looking forward. He would probably say it is in a way that's looking forward, but at least we're being clear about this.
cherry picking. If you want to take things back to tradition, take it all the way back. Why stop at the 50s?
There we go. Good question from Coach. Peter Wright says, Wilson argues distinctly like a woman, just an avalanche of pressured speech and scattergun claims. I will say, a lot of these blood sport debates tend to be like that. I used to watch them a lot more, but then, I just, after a while, I'm like, I can't with this so often. It's just, it stopped being my cup of tea. But this one, where it really, it's got Coach in it and it's pretty relevant. But, I hear where you're coming from, Peter Wright. Shout out to you and thank you, sir. That's a fair point from CGA. Sorry, my vision's getting a little messed up. So the only way to change the system is to take away the incentive for the state to destroy men financially. And the only way to do that is not to marry. Well, that's the only thing that can put men into a position to say, hey, this is what to negotiate and say, we want to step back into marriage, but we need to see some changes. Here are some of the changes. Angel says that's not true. The First Amendment prevents the federal government establishing a national church. The original 12 of 13 states had state religions and churches after ratification. Interesting. Oram says, this is exhausting. They're talking past each other. I've got to get to bed. Have a good night. Yo, Oram, thanks for hanging out in here for as long as you did, man. I hope you have a fantastic night and that you have a fantastic Sunday and a fantastic day off Tuesday. It would be cool if CGA brought up the dowry. I know, wouldn't that be amazing? I swear this was the moment for it. I get it if he didn't. Like, we've been looking at this dowry stuff for a while. I did chat with him about that, which was pretty cool, over a cigar. And here's the thing. I don't fault him for not bringing it up too much, because when you're in a debate like this, you want to make sure you're talking about what you know about. I would say. I'm sure Coach has some familiarity with it, but if he doesn't feel like it's enough, it could be a mistake to do that. You know what I mean? So I understand at a debate where it's kind of like this tense and this stuff is going on. It's like if you see two guys dueling and they're both using a weapon that they've practiced with for a long time. I don't want to run in there and be like, Coach, I made this spear. You know what I mean? Take the spear, Coach. But trust me, it'll work. And like that can cause a huge issue. Man, speaking of it, I would love to see this image, but like me making a spear, like in that God of War game, except the spear is like it represents the dowry. Like when I started talking about the dowry, how it works, I envisioned it in a sense as this is what needs to be discussed to push back on tradcons. And it's like I've been in the forge making the perfect weapon, and I just want to give it to somebody who has a larger reach than me to just aim that thing and just throw it. I want them to pick it up and be like, wow, that feels so perfectly balanced. And then just, pow, straight to the heart of this whole thing. So yes, but if two people are dueling, like, I don't know, like in this kind of situation, it's like, I wouldn't want to throw someone off kilter and say, Coach, say this. You know what I mean? They're both arguing at, one misstep.
Take it back to the 1890s.
What you're saying right now is so incoherent. I actually
But yes, the dowry would have worked there quite nicely.
Take it back to the 1890s.
What you're saying right now is so incoherent. I actually don't even understand
Well,
it.
that's what.
To be honest, I don't think that's a fair criticism from Andrew. I think Coach was pretty clear. He's saying, listen, if you're going to talk about how the way things used to be, then we have to go back and look at how it actually historically was. Andrew might be saying, well, I wasn't referring to any of this in the first place, so it doesn't make sense. But I think Coach is being clear enough.
Listen, when you're running out of bullets, the last thing you do is the shame. All right, listen,
I'm not even trying to shame you. It's just incoherent.
I need you to catch up with me.
Okay, catch me up.
Just say you're lacking if you can't keep it up.
It's
all right, now here's the problem.
It's incoherent.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem.
I don't know what to tell you.
Here's the problem you're having.
2,000 years ago, they were chopping heads off. Who gives a shit?
Listen,
what does that mean?
See, he's saying 2,000 years ago, things were way different in terms of how marriage was done.
You said 2,000 years ago. I'm coming up with yours. You're wholly religious. 2,000 years ago, it's been a part of the institution.
What does that have to do with this?
Exactly. Here's the problem. You're cherry picking.
Cherry picking what?
He was clear about that.
Listen.
I'm listening.
I'm going to slow you down. I'm going to slow you down because I see what you're doing here. I'm going to slow you down.
Okay.
Because it's hard for you to keep up.
Jojo. Hey, welcome in, Jojo. Thanks for being here. The point of Andrew Wilson's argument is this: join a traditional church and do not get legally married. Very simple, and any individual can do this today. I'd say, Jojo, if there are churches out there that are encouraging their people to not avail themselves of the state license, there are still other risks. There's custody, child support, these other problems. But I would say if there was a church and they're like, listen, trust in God, both you, the man, and you, the woman, especially you, the woman. I need you to really listen to the church authority here. Do not go with the state contract. Marry this man and we will do a covenant marriage for you. And that's what that whole community believes in. I don't know if I've ever heard of a church that encourages people to do that. But, not that that's what he's saying they should be doing. So does one need to exist now? No. But, that would be interesting. Luke says, Jojo, or at Jojo, and that is done already, and people are still destroyed. CGA destroyed that point at the beginning, but it gets overlooked. Stacks Anon says, CGA's point of the Catholic Church has used force in the past to pressure other societies into following an overly legalistic interpretation of Christianity. For example, Jesuits. Thank you, Stacks. Good seeing you, man. CS says, good luck finding women to marry you without government co-signing protection. Most women do not want to get married if they can't get the state license involved. Women are very sharp when it comes to that. For one religion to exist in the state must be the one to force this. And the state will not force people to worship in the Orthodox Church or give them power over marriage. That's true. I agree with you there. Bay says, nah, but think critically. If you think you need to avoid the state marriage, the flip, are you religiously married to this woman for either? Either you trust her or you don't, the way I see it. That's a fair point, Base. That is a fair point. You know, and I will say, you know, that is similar to what I think tradcons will say. Sometimes some of them will make a boast about it. Well, it's like, I know my wife wouldn't do that to me. And I know that's not what you're saying, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of that. I get what you're saying though. Like, why, if you got to do all these backflips and stuff, is it even, the marriage thing is maybe just not even going to work from the start as far as that goes. You know, to me, it all goes back to this thing of hypergamy. For some reason, our culture encourages hypergamous marriages. It doesn't encourage equal marriages, frankly, fair marriages, balanced marriages. It encourages hypergamous marriages. So it's like, I agree with you, Base, in the sense of like, what is the point of doing it if we know it's a hypergamous marriage to begin with? Professor Jiang from Predictive History on YouTube talks about how religion subverts society to create false legitimacy. I've seen some of his stuff. The Catholic and Orthodox Church are the traditional churches, and a small handful of Protestant churches, not the dozens of other Protestant denominations. It is important to understand that. As was stated, even outside of common law, a woman can go to the lawyer and point to a religious ceremony, and the state will see that as de facto marriage and then take jurisdiction. That's a tough one for me, you know, and I'll be honest, I haven't seen that. If there are attorneys out there saying it, maybe it's true. For me, typically, it's like there's just a lot of stuff outside of the marriage codes that have, you know, family law has expanded and changed over time. So there's still, you know, risks and stuff. Ideally, without the license is better, even if you have the ceremony, I'd like to think. But if that's going on there, then that's unfortunate. Avoiding legal marriage does not protect you from having your children taken away through child support orders that deprives the father of access to his children. That's true. CGA is highlighting Andrew's subtext of his argument is the same as this. It's about pressure and forcing people to participate in his worldview inorganically. If a state marriage is appointed, there would be a fight for power in the church and divisions. That would probably happen.
It is.
I understand. I understand. Listen,
I'm listening.
I'm gonna slow you down. I'm gonna slow you down because I see what you're doing here. I'm gonna slow you down.
Okay.
Because it's hard for you to keep up.
It is.
I understand. I understand because you haven't been across. This is your toughest debate. Your audience knows this.
Oh, it's rough.
There's no God in marriage.
Okay.
In the United States.
Yeah.
Can we agree to that? When you get to divorce, there's no God in marriage.
We can't agree to that.
We need to agree to it because when you go into divorce court, there's no God. You can't bring in your God and your Bible. And at that particular point, none of your ecclesiastics marriage works.
Okay.
Period.
So the thing is, you just said.
Fatty says, but thinking critically, that's the problem. Nothing logic about women's behavior. You're not going to solve your issues with women by out-logic them. They change with the season. CGA is right. Shout out to you, Fatty. Thanks for being here. The problem is that at the point the woman takes it to the lawyer and puts it in the family court, then you have to then prove a negative that you aren't. Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't think you're going to be able to debate lord somebody into complying. You know what I mean? If they don't want to listen to you and they're ready to leave the marriage and all this stuff, it's, you know, it's gonna fail. And it's like, in some sense, really, that all you can try to do is explain and hope people make the right decision and maybe give some incentives. But, you know, I don't know. It also sounds kind of negative. So I'm not trying to be negative, but I get where you're saying. Then you have to prove a negative that you aren't. Winning the debate just show you are better debater. Doesn't mean you are right. You know, it's funny. I used to have a coworker who said you can be right or you can get what you want. When it comes to women, you know, I think that applies sometimes. You can win the argument and be right, and if that's the case, then they're gonna, you know, try to make you pay some other way. Right. The point is to mitigate risk. If you are concerned of getting destroyed in divorce, simply not getting legally married eliminates asset splits and alimony. And yeah, Joe, I'd agree with you there. That would be a mitigation of risk. Very true. Unless you can use religion as leverage in court, everything Andrew proposes is selling hopium to men. I posted images in the Discord. Uh-oh. Ooh. These are the best. Marriage if. This is how Dan the man is seeing the debate. That's pretty accurate. Thank you for that. I love the real-time AI images as we react to these.
Can we agree that there's no God in marriage? And then
You don't have to agree.
But hang on, calm down. And then he switched over to divorce. There's no God in divorce. But those are two different questions and proposition. Hang on, relax. The second thing is that me saying that what made marriage a great institution is this whole Sky Daddy character, and that the institution has been in place for 2,000 years, and it's been, hang on, calm down.
2,000
and
years.
It's been a strong institution.
See, the thing about going back 2,000 years is we got to talk about this.
Your dowry, it's my right.
I'm not actually sure how tying in that at the time they cut people's heads off, what that has to do with the fact that in the 1950s and 40s, you still had 95% of these marriages staying together. This is not.
That's going to have, I think, a lot to do with the secular family codes at the time. I mean, you can say there's a cultural thing, and you might even say it's because of religion, but at least at fault divorce at least says, hey, we recognize there's hypergamy going on here. So here's what's going to happen, and here's the rules for that if we're going to play this game. So at least there's protections on either side. All right, fine. You're the provider. You paid for everything. Okay, if the lady cheats or does this, then the court will award you as the injured party most of the assets in the custody. Okay, you're, whatever. He decided to marry you. He's providing, but, he can't cheat or abuse you or do any of these things too. You didn't bring a dowry. That doesn't give him the right to abuse you or, be cruel in the marriage or something like that. So at fault, I think, was a lot of this.
Ancient history. This is not even early American history. Hang on. That's in your grandfather's lifetime, basically. And this, by the way, that was the case for black marriages as well. Very strong institutions. Correct. But all of those institutions were that way because they followed that whole Sky Daddy thing. Correct. They were like, oh, that Sky Daddy's going to smite us if we don't. And so what you do here is you're giving the classic progressive argument, which is, well, guys, it is true that it's a great institution, and it is true it's the best place in the world to have children for the continuation of the species. And also, it's fantastic for men's health. It's fantastic for their mental health. It's great for them in almost every way.
I mean, when marriage is good, that's true. When it leads to divorce, then that's not true. That's where the risk comes in. Divorced men have way worse metrics than men who are single, as far as that kind of goes. This is Shah from Coffee Joy. It seems in recent times, when people state reasons for not doing something being religious, it tends to be the case that's only taken seriously in general when it's not Christianity. That's interesting. Maybe it seems that way over here. There's that kind of effect of something being different and maybe people aren't familiar with it. So when people say, oh, it's part of my religion, it's like, oh, well, I've never been acquainted with that. So that's interesting. But if Christianity is the mainstream religion, then maybe it's not afforded the same generosity there, or the way of looking at it. When kids and property are involved, it is not objectively false. Shout out Luke. Divorce did not originally existed. Death for adultery and marriage was lifelong. Divorce was created 2,000 years later. Prior to the church authority there, they did have divorce, and they did have, in the Roman Empire, divorce did happen, and there were rules for that in different places. But Then for a long time, you know, there wasn't. There was annulments, and there was all these rules about how that happened. If there was adultery, then, you know, that I think changed things. That might have been like one of the only things. I'll have to double check that. It is objectively false, even with kids and assets. She still won't be able to file for divorce. All she can do is try to get child support. But the risk of CS is not solely a marriage issue. I don't have my finger on the pulse of the modern church, but I'm under the impression that it's become a mouthpiece for the feminist progressive ideology and is cucked beyond recognition or repair. I mean, I've heard stuff like that before. CS says the view about divorce of 1950s was vastly different from today. You can't recreate that kind of society. This was if this, and that proposition lacks substance. Yeah, I mean, you know, I think statistically, the divorce was obviously a lot less. Kids being born out of wedlock, a lot less. I think it was probably like 5%, if that. It was a lot different, you know. But that was a very special time in history in terms of how they did that. And, you know, of course, the laws were different back then, too, along with the culture, along with technology. Technology, I think, is the X factor in a lot of this. I suspect it's because people don't want to seem Islamophobic or antiseptic. That's where, yeah, I think it's a lot of it. It just comes from wanting to be, I guess, open or whatever, versus the mainstream, just anything different. RP doesn't apply this black pill logic about risk and loss to their money-driven mantra. First-time business has a massive fail rate, loss, and legality, yet RP would tell you to work through the loss. That's true, but if it's your business, then that's different because you're in full control of it. If you're entering into a business with a business partner and you have to contribute 100% of the capital and they contribute 0, except that person can leave any time and take 50% of the capital, then, you know, that fail rate's going to suck a lot more. Covenants are ratified in blood and lifelong. They are not like contracts. It was a lifelong promise, and if you broke the covenant, it was enforced the same way as it was ratified through blood. Let me tell you, if Andrew was up here saying that, and that's what the church was doing, then people might be more likely to do that. I don't know, or maybe not, if that works both ways, right? For the man and the woman. If you can get joint custody, that will also further lower the risk of impact of divorce in a non-legal marriage. Look at Tennessee and their CS laws. They have default custody. You know, I'd say, Joe, that it's a lot easier to fight for custody when you're not paying alimony. So yeah, if you can avoid the state contract and you two are cohabitating, the law doesn't really look at marriage. In my opinion, and I could be wrong, but having the marriage license doesn't give you a leg up in custody court. The key is cohabitation. So I think if you're cohabitating and you can prove that you have a relationship with this child and that it's good to continue this relationship, then it's better. But you can do that without the state marriage contract. So fun stuff. Hey, I see Jeff Younger. I can't pull him up on the screen. But Jeff Younger has actually left a chat here. Here, you know what? I'll bring it up the long way. Check this out. Shout out to Jeff Younger, who's visiting us today. Thank you, Jeff. I've been following your story for a while, and I appreciate your tweets when I see them. Jeff Younger says, marriage is too risky for men under the current legal regime. It absolutely is. And I know someone like, you know, Andrew, I think to some extent understands that, and he's trying his best to mitigate the risk, but a lot of people have come to that conclusion. Someone else in the chat mentioned Jeff Younger. I think it was Dan the Man earlier. So you were brought up earlier in the context of this debate. Thanks for being here, Jeff. All right, let's move in.
But that divorce thing is real bad, and I counter. You're right, that divorce thing is real bad. We have now a center of agreement. But now we're going back to the marriage in the West thing, which is that whole great institution problem. Well, if we agree that what made it good, which you just did, is, hey, that Sky Daddy guy, and then I point out that right now you can still utilize that Sky Daddy guy for an ecclesiastical marriage outside of the state. Hang on. And the only thing you could do is say, well, what about common law? But you can't govern anybody from common law. And at least in the ecclesiastical institution, you have social pressures on women to stay married. You can't offer a man anything like that. Give me a single social pressure you can offer that would actually keep these marriages together. One.
Oh, an economic pressure.
Your dowry, it's my right.
That would help. You know, if you guys are familiar in the chat, you know, I wouldn't know, but is it like pretty easy to find a church pastor or somebody that is on board with people getting married of just covenant marriage without the state license? I have a feeling that maybe the conversation doesn't come up, and if you were gonna do that, it's like you have the pastor come out and he gives you like the paper or something, and you guys just never file it. Typically, a lot of time, the religious institutions, they give that over to the state itself, and then if you're completing your marriage license, then they see, okay, it was solemnized by this person. So I don't know. I guess you can start the process and just never finish it, and then nobody is none the wiser that nobody actually got legally married. I used to listen to guys talk about mitigating risks in Iraq too. Guess how well that actually works when rubber hits the road. Man, that's a real point right there, Luke. I can appreciate that. When it gets bad, that's when panic and all these, it's very hard to not panic under pressure. Shout out to you, man. Joe says, you're right, bro. Just trying to share some info for men who still want families without the state breathing down their necks. I would not recommend getting married through the state at all. That's the problem, man. Like, and listen, when I worked at child support, I had the same understanding, you know, I had looked at so many of them. My conclusion was that, listen, to some degree, you have to, like, if you want to do this, you have to accept that you're going to walk through fire, and hopefully you come out mostly intact on the other side. I used to even call it that when I worked at child support. I was like, oh, well, you know, if I'm going to do this, then I got to walk through the fire. You know, I guess that's just what I got to do. You know what I mean? But I get it, man. And I appreciate what you're saying here to at least give men some options on how to do that. It still will probably suck, but if you can make it suck less, you know. And I get that's what Andrew's trying to say. Marriage doesn't guarantee love, it guarantees duty. He's talking to Coach Greg Adams like he's one of those OnlyFans girls on the Whatever show, which is his biggest mistake. Gosh, man, I haven't seen Whatever podcast in a long time. I used to watch them every now and then. The Financial Frontier say social pressure does not work. Ask Japan, Korea, and China. That's a good point. Most churches are 503c corporations. They are in bed with the state. Yes, I know a pastor giving marriages, but churches are sold out to the state by the 501c3 tax exemption. Yeah, see, here's the problem. Like, can a church openly say, like, to the congregation, you know, good men and women of the congregation, stay away from the corrupt state marriage contract. We will give you covenant marriages. And, you know, we ask that you trust in those, as those marriages are, you know, done under God. You know what I mean? And we don't need the state. Like, can they openly say that from the pulpit, or would like that get them in trouble or mess with their licensing? I think if we could prove a connection there, it would reveal something. I don't have that though, but like the stuff you guys are talking about seems like that could be the case. Social pressure does not work. There is heavy social pressure to marry. Don't divorce and wedlock kids. Women have decided to not marry and have kids. Simple. I hear what you're saying, man. That's the tough part there. WTF is a social pressure. Shame doesn't work anymore. Yeah, you know, that's an interesting thing about shame. Shame without real consequences, I think, is pretty toothless. You know, shame when there is consequences of doing something bad, you know, that works. I'd like to think. As for Protestant churches, they require law marriages. Okay, so, you know, that's some, I know there's different churches and different denominations and stuff, so I just haven't heard of, like, a church saying, I feel like that would make national news if there was one. And if it wasn't, you know, it would be nice to know. I think the people would want to know. Okay. I'm just going to get back into this just so we can get this moving.
What? Just one.
Can I answer something
Yeah.
you just said? This
Give me a single social pressure you can offer that would actually keep these marriages together. One. What? One. Just one.
Can I answer something
Yeah.
you just said? This would be interesting.
I
because
can't wait.
You said
But
the
can you answer
19
that question then
No,
ask?
before.
Oh, of
the
course.
1940s.
Of course, you gotta ask me a question.
Because
before you
listen,
answer
I'm
mine.
listening. I'm listening to you. You asked the question at the end. If you would have asked it at the beginning, possibly I might have been able to address it. But let me address this point.
Okay.
You said the 1940s and 1950s with this imaginary sky daddy controlling marriages. That sounds like enforcement. Because by the time the
Doesn't it?
1970s came around, the very first chance women got to file a no-fault divorce without
Yeah, see, that's the thing about the 50s is there was this whole at-fault thing. It was very different.
need for evidence, without need to have a private investigator to prove an affair.
Was no fault the 70s?
Yes, it was the
No
70s.
no fault, I believe, was 1969. Listen, and that was just in California. So it took probably about like 10 to 20 years for it to kind of filter out to the rest of the states. Let's see. No fault divorce, California. Year. I used to remember this off the top of my head. California passed its no fault divorce law in 1969. I mean, it may as well be the 70s because California passed it then, and then it started, sort of just trailing into the rest of the states. So, technically, no, it was 1969. So it wasn't. But as far as it being far and wide, I mean, even in the intervening 20 or 25 years, other states were still adopting it. So just to be, straight on that. Mr. Pitt says, Financial Frontier, excellent point. The 4B movement is quite literally a large-scale rejection of social norms. Knockout says your best bet is being a passport bro and having kids overseas and seeing them every 90 days, 6 months out of the year. Some people do that, man. Some people do that.
And he started by Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
I'll educate you here.
Was no fault the 70s?
Yes, it was the 70s. Started by Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
I'll educate you.
But hang on.
Came along. Hold on for a second. No.
Yeah.
I got the
Go
floor
ahead.
here. I got the floor. So you said the religious institutions governed it and made it great. The 1970s came along, and as soon as they did,
Feminism.
women started to file divorces at record rates, which is back to my conversation. Soon as you remove the authority of Sky Daddy, now you're back with the state. And now you have difficulty, and now the risk is
It's not even just removing Sky Daddy. It's literally removing the legal challenges from at fault to no fault.
now greater.
Oh.
So that's the issue that
Then
you
it
have.
sounds like men should be moving towards Sky Daddy.
See, I think Coach kind of misspoke here. He's talking about at fault to no fault. Then he says you removed Sky Daddy. I think what he meant to say was that you removed at fault to no fault.
State. And now you have difficulty, and now the risk is now greater.
Oh.
So that's the issue that
Then
you
it
have.
sounds like men should be moving
See, and then Andrew saw that and he seized on it as quick as he could because he's a sharp
towards
debater.
Sky Daddy then because it mitigates their risk.
The courts, the nation should be
There's
moving
no
towards
courts.
that. But how do you enforce that?
What court? What courts?
your
You're
land
not
is-
getting a marriage from the state. What courts are involved here?
Everything you told me is
I will say I do give Andrew credit for advocating men not sign the state marriage license. I mean, I think that's a big leap on the conservative side, at least. Not saying that solves all the problems. It certainly doesn't, especially when it comes to custody and things like that. I could just say it represents some kind of change. Like, this is me trying to be really positive here,
a make-believe scenario.
How? You can
You're
do it
telling-
right now. How is it make believe?
How do you do that when people
Here's
the
what you
marriages
do.
do state?
Yeah.
I know you want to go
I'll
back
tell
to
you how.
Ecclesiastics. This
No,
is
I'm
going to be
telling
a
you, you
problem.
can do it right
Okay.
this second.
Okay,
You
can
could go
it.
do it right now.
You can do it at this particular
can't
point.
do.
However,
What do you mean?
Here's the problem.
Okay.
Can you get men to do it?
Yes.
Okay. You might be able to think you can get men to do it, but as soon as they do it, I want you to stick around for the average of 8 to 10 years when these men start getting divorced. See, what you're doing is you're leading
We've
men,
been
hold on
watching
for a
it for
second.
longer.
You're going to lead men into a burning building.
Oh.
And the reason why.
Coach, I think Coach has standing to say this, and this is what obviously men are afraid about. Now, okay, without the marriage contract, at least it's not the worst case scenario.
And this is a famous quote by Martin Luther King. It's because the laws of integration didn't catch up fast enough for what he wanted for people to integrate. And what happened was it took him 12 to 15 years to realize that he led men or black people into a burning building in which integration was not possible at the time.
Okay.
You are also proposing the same thing. And I would like for you to stick around to see the results of what you're proposing, because eventually you would have to pay the price. How did Martin Luther King pay the price? You would have to pay the price for the men that you misled.
So Martin Luther misled men, and that's why he was killed?
I said he misled black people. You missed that part.
Those
He said,
right.
okay, let me repeat it, because you're slow.
I
All right,
am,
you
you're
definitely
right.
are slow, Neanderthal.
That's for sure.
Let me tell you something.
I'm dragging
Martin
Knuckles
Luther
over here.
King said specifically, related to black people and civil rights, I'll speak slowly for you, that he believed at the end, he led them into a burning building. I'm going to speak slower. The reason
Coach is making an analogy here to what Andrew's doing.
Then why is because the laws of integration did not catch up with what he would like to present. Black people weren't ready to integrate. As a result, he said, I may have led my people, that means his people, into a burning building.
Okay.
I would like for you, under your scenario, if your movement takes off, to see the results, because it took Martin Luther King 12, 15 years to see the results
I understand
of
now.
his efforts. You're proposing something very extreme that majority of people aren't going to do. But let's just say because you like to hide in the clouds of make-believe, if this works, I would love to see you represent these men in a divorce when they get their head bit off by these so-called women that are forced by Sky Daddy to stay in these marriages.
This is really, I don't even understand how
you don't understand. I know you have a hard time understanding.
I do. I don't actually even understand how to respond to a lot of.
You know, I think that's a bit disingenuous on Andrew's part. This kind of reminds me a little bit of like how someone like Destiny might argue, but you know, at this point, it's kind of off the rails anyway. So they're both being this kind of way to each other at this point. So I mean, to be fair to him, Coach is giving it to him, and they've been kind of at each other like that. Look into Tennessee's custody laws on your own spare time. Default joint custody lowered the divorce rate. Are you talking about Kentucky's custody laws? I can't remember. I did hear about that. They did a default 50-50 custody split, unless there's a good reason for it not to be, which I did hear was good. I think getting rid of incentives for divorce keeps marriages intact. I think that was Kentucky. I did hear about that. Still love the CGA gang. Shout out, absolutely shout out to CGA. Free agent gang. One is recycling symbol. The story, Andrew knows the CGA didn't do his research. Sorry, I couldn't read that comment. One is speaking of what is, other is saying what should be, and they spoke past each other. Yeah, they're definitely doing that. Coach is quite straightforward. How is it hard to understand for Andrew? It's like he is being passive aggressive. Yeah, that's what it was. The debates kind of moved into that aspect. The best interests of the child statutes apply to all children born in or out of marriage. And child support, the only difference between marriage and cohabitation is the right to sue for property. Exactly. The assets of the marriage. Furthermore, if any kind of manoswampian that is a creator speaking on feminism should know Rachel's book. I knew of Rachel before Andrew. Okay. I like both of them, but they literally are speaking past each other, and the moderator took a huge L for not seeing that. Yeah, the moderator is very noticeably not there. Sorry, it is Kentucky. Okay, it was Kentucky. Yeah, I did see that in the news. That was promising. I don't know if it's the alcohol or Andrew's just disingenuous. Is he drinking? Is that an alcohol bottle? I don't know.
This is so incoherent, but I'm going to try anyway.
Oh yeah, see, this is
So let's start.
This is his always incoherent when he understands. Perhaps you don't understand. That might be what it is, and it's okay to say you don't understand, and I can speak slowly for you.
I don't understand now, but I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why.
Dismissive. I mean,
I'm going to tell you why.
It's okay. When you're losing, just say you're losing, and I can speak.
Let
for
me
you
know
a
when I
little
can
bit
talk
slower.
and he gas out.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So here's
typical tactic, but you can work that against these
so I still
OnlyFans
can't
girls.
talk.
Hey,
Go
listen.
ahead.
You can work that tactic against those OnlyFans girls that you debate. debating 23-year-old ignorant women.
They're smarter than you.
But now
They're
you're sitting
smarter than you.
across from a person.
They're always smarter than you.
Yeah, you're sitting across from a person here.
Oh, no.
That's looking at a Neanderthal say you don't understand something very
Well,
simple.
let me know when he gas out
This
so
is
I
the
can respond.
simplest thing that you can understand.
Okay.
Your go. Your go.
Are you sure?
Please.
I can actually do it this
and
time?
please, put me to sleep. Please.
Okay, so
Put me to sleep.
Here's why it's incoherent, and there's a bunch of this I don't understand. You keep on saying that these men are going to get divorced, and yet I'm proposing non-state marriages. How are they going to get divorced? Well, you can only say then via common law. But again, you have no defense yourself against
these are if scenarios. I mean, come on,
I
man.
don't.
Common law is a very there's not that many states that do common law. Let me look that up. Actually, wasn't it like 7? Can't even remember now. How many states have common law marriage? 7 states currently recognize common law marriage: Colorado, Iowa, Kansas, Montana, Oklahoma, Rhode Island, and Texas. Some other states may recognize common law marriage that were established in other states or before a specific date. District of Columbia is in there too. Recognizes it. Okay, recognizing it meaning that if they come from another state, possibly. So interesting. That's a good chunk of states, but it's not the majority. It's not the majority. Or some alcohol with soda water. I like both of them until Andrew went on his week-long backstabbing, backbiting, name-calling tour. He lost my respect. I did see that they did some stuff. I know he was on Access Vegas after. There was kind of a huge blowout from this. I did see a clip of it. He drank alcohol during the show. No way. He was drinking alcohol during this? And was chain smoking. Jealousy and pride. I thought he usually drinks beer. This is the first time I've seen him drinking hard stuff. It belongs to the moderator. He asked for a drink and was given 2 options. Oh. Drunken Andrew calling sober CGA incoherent. Well, that adds a whole new layer of things. I didn't know that. Even if you don't get married, you still have to deal with palimony and child support. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a risk there. There's going to be... Listen, you can not be married. You can have a cohabitating girlfriend, or let's just say ecclesiastical marriage partner. They can file a restraining order on you, and literally you will have to leave your own house, and she will stay in there, and you'll have to pay the bills. I've seen that happen. With somebody and their girlfriend. So it's possible, man. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that's what CGA is referring to. No, there is no formal divorce. But you can end up in a crap situation. Now, listen, I think it's avoiding the marriage contract is still a good first step on a lot of this, to be honest. At the beginning, the moderator offered him some alcohol. Okay. Oh, see, I skipped like the first 12 minutes to just get to the debate. So probably people who are watching it live noticed that. They don't do alimony as much anymore, especially for poor people, just child support. This is not an is versus... That's interesting to know, Michael. This is not an is versus if type of debate. You can get married without the state today. It is an option available to most men in the States right now, this second. Andrew is a whiskey enjoyer to my knowledge. Got some images in there? Hell yeah. I'm all about images, man. Oh, yeah, there we go. See, this is what we've been working on. I'm telling you. It's just like, who are those people in, the heck is that new God of War game with the Vikings? God of War blacksmith. Like, I've been trying to blacksmith this, you know? Yeah, those dwarf guys. Like one of these dudes right here. I made you the perfect weapon so you can defeat that fast guy that you can't catch. This is Hephaestus. I'd probably choose the dwarf. I want to be the dwarf guy. Yeah, exactly. That's what we've been working on. Take this and launch it at the TradCon heart. Ah, that'd be beautiful.
I don't.
said I was going to debate somebody
This
that's going to
is-
come.
Why do you
this
keep
is a if
filibustering?
scenario.
Are you?
Give me a real scenario,
I let you
please.
speak the entire time.
Give me something to speak about.
Okay,
You're giving me
I'm
an
not
if
asking you to
scenario.
speak. I'm
You're
asking
trying
you
to
to
invite
listen.
me to your church.
I'm just
I'm not going to
asking
your
you
church.
to
Please
listen.
give me a real scenario.
You have to shut up long enough for me to
Come
do
on,
it.
please.
Okay, so 40 minutes, 43 seconds. This has reached a boiling point. CGA has been attacking Andrew for days now. The day after the day after in his morning streams and evening streams, he attacked his family as well and is still doing it. So yeah, Andrew is going to respond. Yeah, I mean, it just seems like it was kind of a blowout. I mean, we're 40 minutes into this, so it's just, here we are. I heard somebody, Joker, I think, mentioned in the Discord that there's talk that they might do another debate. I don't know if that's going to happen, but it seems like that was a thing too. So they are both doing wrong. Andrew claims to hold the high ground. He claims virtue. He did more than respond. I watched Crucible Chummy. Don't give Shah any ideas with the whiskey during the show. Yeah, I'm a lightweight, man. CGA often says, I'm more a guy to like smoke a cigar on the show. CGA often says during his show, no marriage, no cohabitation. Yep, no cohabitation. He's regularly mentioned how DV laws can be used to force men out of their homes while their girlfriend at the time stays there. Yeah, I mean, if she says, if she lives and receives mail there and is a resident, there's going to be certain rights that go along with that. And then if you're in a DV situation, like you can very well be kicked out of your house. And it's very odd. I've seen that before. That's some phenomenal AI art. I need to step my game up. LOL. It is very nice. Dan the man. I appreciate all the art you guys make, Mr. Pitt, and the music and everything. Jojo says requiring a dowry could also mitigate the risks as well. Imagine adding that to marrying without the state. No worries of alimony and 50-50 asset splits, and she has financial skin in the game. Exactly.
Your dowry, it's my right.
It would help to incentivize both people to stick together, work it out, and there's a lot more respect, I would say, at the beginning of the marriage because both people have mutually invested into this. So it's like, how can you not respect that from a person? And when the dowry system starts to go away, we see this kind of issue of men, on the one hand wanting to take pride and saying, well, we didn't, we didn't require a dowry from her, but then later on reproaching the wife for not having brought anything into the marriage. And I read that to you guys last week. I just don't know where I put it. Right here. This is Dowries for Girls, Daily Mirror, Saturday, 3rd November, 1923. Surely the dowry system has, as your contributor suggests, one great advantage. It enables a woman to claim that she brought something into the family. This gives her independence. Many Englishmen are proud of marrying penniless girls.
I have no dowry. If anything, I have a negative dowry.
And they consider the French plan ungallant. This is where chivalry comes in. This is how chivalry was weaponized to push away the dowry system. For a portionless girl in France has much less chance of getting married than one with the dowry. Listen, spirituality ain't going to fix that. If you're a dowerless woman, the church is not going to come in and what the church might do is fund a charity to help dowerless women. We saw that the Pope did that. Gosh, where's my American newspaper clippings? Gosh, man, I've become an old man, bro, that like just needs to have glasses on all the time. Where's my visit of the Pope? Here we go. Oh, Pope distributing dowries. Yeah. Yeah, right here. See, man, I didn't even finish this candy bar first before I brought up the other. Anyways, on Sunday, okay, we'll skip that. Many of this, on the contrary, he's a monarch. After the ceremony, which was celebrated with great pomp, the Pope intermitted a number of persons, priests and laity, to kiss his feet. Amongst those who enjoyed the privileges were 12 young girls, selected from the 846 who this year received from the Pious Society of the Annunziata a dowry. which will either enable them to obtain husbands or to pay for their admission into a convent. So if you're a woman without a dowry, the church isn't going to be like, nah, forget about the dowry. You should get married anyways and just find a good man. They're going to be like, yeah, she shouldn't get married, this dowerless woman. Maybe we'll get the community together and get some donations going on to help get a portion for this woman so she can find a husband. And if she doesn't want to do that, then she can join a convent instead of, having to go to that building behind the tavern that starts with the B. So, yeah, I mean, the Pope was received with demonstrations of love and respect, and cries of "Long live the Pope King" were raised by the students of the American College. Anyways, this one was 1866. The Poor Pope, Taunton Courier, and Western Advertiser. Wednesday, 2nd May, 1866. And we have a couple different newspaper clippings literally telling us all about that, but that's a different one. Okay. For a portionless girl in France has much less chance of getting married than one with the dowry. See, nowadays, it's like the guy needs to have a good job and he needs to be a provider if he wants to get married. If we're going to say that, can we bring this back to that if a woman has no portion that she can't get married? Can we please do that? I'm willing to keep that the guy needs to be a good provider and have all this in place, but we got to bring this part back too, right? This is the part everybody's missing. For a portionless girl in France has much less chance of getting married than one with the dowry. And let me tell you, that's not just in France. That's in every single dowry-paying society. This boast of Englishmen would be better justified if so many of them did not turn around after the marriage and reproach their wives for having brought them no money. So chivalry is becoming popular. They want to brag about marrying dowerless women and how they're just these heroes on a horse. But then after they get married, they're like secretly resentful of their wives for not bringing any money to the marriage.
I have no dowry. If anything, I have a negative dowry.
Okay, so we went over some of our sources again. Yeah, shout out JoJo for that. Yeah, a dowry would be nice again. Absolutely. Man, she can lie on you and make your living hell even if you live the free agent lifestyle. Look at Shannon Sharp's situation. Yeah, there is risk to CGA's solution as well. Yo, dude, there absolutely is. And I love CGA, but there absolutely is risk. Listen, man, it just takes stepping in one landmine. You step in one landmine and we're all on a battlefield out here, bro. And some of us are going to get got. You know what I mean? You play the game and you enter the field. There's bullets flying everywhere, man. There's drones. You know what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to go too far into it. Saint Nick would help dowerless women. Exactly. Yeah. Or using reference images to get exactly what you want. I'll keep that in mind, Dan. If I see something, I'll send it. Maybe it can help with the AI generation. Shannon Sharp situation. Cap Pila, welcome in. Transpired because he didn't want to pay. That's true, yeah. Coach would have said he should have paid on the front end that $25,000 or whatever the amount was. In Africa, if you didn't pay a dowry or exchange something of value, you couldn't prove your marriage. Yep, that's the bride price. That's true. And in a lot of places, the dowry legitimates the marriage. It's not even the religious thing. If there was no dowry, then it's like the marriage would never happen. It's like, what are you guys talking about? You just over here playing house? Go back to your parents' homes, both of you. Shannon was paying. She just wanted more. Oh, really? Okay. Can we fight to have laws that says you can't be common law married unless she paid a dowry? I mean, I'll pick up my pitchfork for that one, Michael. And had little to no legal protection. MGTOW is better until society corrects. Yo, Luke, honestly, man, I frankly agree with you on that. I think I've said it a bunch of times, but it all roads lead back to MGTOW, frankly. And it's a peaceful life. It's a peaceful life, man. You get yourself a CRT TV, some old gaming systems, and you get Rick Steves' Europe travels on DVD off eBay, and you got plenty of just stuff to do. At least me. Works for me. Good show, Shah. Thanks, Oikophobic. I'll catch the rest in a bit. No worries. You have a great rest of your night. I need to rewatch CGA's analysis of Shannon Sharp's situation. If I remember correctly, Shannon didn't pay on the front end. Okay, I thought he didn't pay either, but well, maybe he did some.
I've been here 30 minutes waiting for you to do it.
All right.
Give me a real scenario.
Okay, so what I don't understand here, again, and I'm going to ask again, in your incoherent worldview,
okay, please.
You keep on saying that these men who I propose this to are going to get divorced. But I'm not proposing that they get married through the state. The state's the one who does the divorces. So the only thing you could say is that there's a potential for common law here. But that's something you yourself cannot guard them from by your own admission. The second problem that we have here is that I don't have to stick around for 10 or 15 years because we can look at the numbers right now in religious marriage for what this looks like. And here's what this looks like. If you're a Catholic, you're way less likely to get divorced. And if you're Orthodox, even less likely to get divorced. And it's because of that ecclesiastical structure. You're not ever going to be able to prevent all risk from divorce, not under anything.
Thank you, God. That's the most.
I think that is Andrew's strongest point here. You know, if those statistics are true, some might say they are. I don't know. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt and say they're true. Then I would say that's his strongest point in saying that might be a better, risk mitigation factor. We used to call unmarried women old maids. If they did not get married by 26 years old, we need that propaganda again by the state and the church. Yeah, that's true. I mean, listen. It's true, man. I think we don't want to admit that today, but at a certain point, I think people kind of Stewie cry themselves. And not to be mean about it, do I have the Stewie cry? I know I do somewhere. Damn it. Hell. I got this one.
Gentlemen, this is Democracy Manifest.
I could have swore. Oh, I do have it. At a certain point, it's just like, well, yeah, all right. I don't endorse paying for women, not in the sense you were just talking about. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you on that. And, I respect that too, man. I would agree with you on that. I know some guys do it. That's fine, whatever. But obviously some people that's not going to match with religious sensibilities. So totally get it, man.
Realist
not
thing
under
said
any,
all day.
But not under any system
Correct.
is that going to be the case.
But why are Catholics getting divorced?
And
How do they get
divorced?
divorced?
They get annulments. They don't even get divorces.
Okay,
and it's
but how does
a
it
really
well, they have divorce through the state and then they get an annulment through the church.
long
So
process, and it's rare.
Christians have a similar divorce rate than the secular.
No.
So they have a very close.
I don't know if it's rare in the Catholic Church. Yeah, see, Coach is saying, no, actually Christians have similar to the population at large. I remember a video from Better Bachelor where he showed some stats on that, but I'm going to have to see those again, frankly. So I don't want to cast judgment and say one or the other is right, but I thought it was higher. Something seems a little off, but,
So how do they get divorced?
I'm going to
How
explain.
do Christians get divorced?
I'll answer your question.
Please tell me, because I know how to get divorced.
So if
right
you
into the
say-
divorce court.
Yeah, I know. So because they call it a state marriage.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm proposing that they don't do that, right?
Okay, a land of make believe. If
How's that a land of
If-
make believe? You can go fucking do it right now.
please tell me what
What are you
percent-
talking
listen,
about?
What percentage of people do
to get charitable to Andrew, I see what he's saying, to avoid the marriage license contract.
this particular thing that you're doing, that you're proposing?
Why
What
would that
percent-
matter? Let's say
Why
it's
does it
one
matter?
person.
Okay.
Why would that?
See, that's a good question by Coach, because that's what I was asking earlier. Like, does anybody know of churches that are doing this or encouraging this? Because it seems like the minute you bring that up, like everybody's going to look at you like you're the bad guy. They're going to be like, wait, you don't want to be married? Like the language is going to go like, wait a minute. They're not going to be like, oh, you just want a covenant marriage. They're going to be like, so you're not going to actually be married. Listen, I called the church one time. I completely forgot about this because I was trying to do like on the ground research. And I swear to God, it just sounded like they were annoyed at me. God bless them. They seemed like good folks. But I asked them, I was like, hey, I was like, would you guys get in trouble if you guys just do a covenant, like just the marriage ceremony, but without signing the marriage license? Is that okay? And they were like, first they were confused. They were like, well, yeah, but you wouldn't actually, they're like, you wouldn't actually be married. You know, like you have to file with the state to then legally be married, legally married. And I was like, okay, but I was like, I was trying to, it wasn't even about like, it's just, if they were willing to, I was just trying to know, like, are they going to get, like, is there a state mechanism that kind of browbeats or beats a club on these churches that stop, like, is there some incentive structure? Like, are they going to lose their license if I was trying to figure this out. And what the person told me was that, well, she gave me the department of the state that overlooks that, and she says they don't really enforce anything. So they didn't really answer if they get in trouble, but it was more like, well, it's not a big deal for us because they're not going to, it was public health and human services, I think. They're the one that's in charge of that. And according to her, they don't really enforce it. So it wasn't like, the church wasn't too worried about it because it's not like that department was going to come after them in any meaningful way. At least it seemed that way. And then I politely thanked that nice lady for her time. That 20% are state marriages with the same incentives to divorce. The fact it's that low under those circumstances proves Andrew's point. Get rid of the incentives and risks go down. 99% of churches in America are in bed with the state. The fact check for what is coming up for the stats, and Andrew's correct. The moderator is going to put them on screen. Okay, well, that's helpful. The general Christian divorce rate is higher than the general public. See, yeah, I'm just getting mixed things here. Would you jump out of an airplane if a parachute had a 20% failure rate, let alone a 50? No, man. No, I would not. I would not do that. I mean, oh, God, that's scary as hell. I'll tell you that. Good luck finding women in those churches. I've attended them. Lots of young men and not so many young women. Okay. But there's always being a monk.
That matter.
One person.
That's like the male equivalent of joining the convent.
So you're taking a very small chance. You're arguing against me that has millions of people on my side.
Getting divorced and you don't want
but you're telling me a small 20 people in a little house on the prairie.
Guys, I got to be honest. We're hitting about 3 hours. I will probably take this to around 4 hours. I'm sorry to stop it so often. Just we're having fun. We probably won't get to 2 hours and 11 minutes. So I'm just being honest with you guys.
Yeah.
That you govern people without electricity and you riding horse and carriages.
Yeah.
You're telling me this small percentage of people are going to lead a movement of doing something you're proposing here on YouTube. This is going, how many people are doing this?
What? Okay. Why would that matter?
It would matter because then we can use some data to determine, do these people end up in divorce?
Well, we can
more
do it.
than likely.
This is great because we can look at the data. So let's look at.
Please.
Do you want to look at the Catholic data and Orthodox data for marriage?
We're talking about your ecclesiastic proposal.
That's what we're talking about. This is the ecclesiastical proposal.
If we're using Catholic and Christians, their divorce rate tends to be very close.
I'll look it up.
It's very close. Let's
not
go ahead and look
Catholic.
it up. Hold on for
Self-ID'd Christians.
Okay,
Self-ID'd Christians.
Okay.
Self-ID.
Self-ID. No, let's just put Christians.
Christian.
He's like,
Christian and Catholic.
You have to tell me what a Christian is.
He likes to dice up all of these people.
It's
and
important.
listen, I would love to go to your church one day. I would be a wonderful guest, and I would love to thump the Bible, and I would love to say a prayer with you. However, this conversation is entering into
Can we pull up my screen?
Very much a Sky Daddy conversation, which
right, we got it.
It's about belief.
Who brought up Sky Daddy? You.
Okay, so this is Chat GPT 5.
You brought it up about
the divorce.
Percent ever divorced. I don't know if this impacts anything. Percent ever divorced. 19 to 25%. Okay, well, I'm thinking of Luke Nielsen and the parachute metaphor. Lower than national average, strongest among practicing Catholics who attend Mass weekly. 30 to 35% for mainline Protestant, roughly matches or slightly exceeds the national average. Evangelical Protestant, 26 to 33%. Non-religious, 37 to 40%. National average, 33%. See, something is wrong with this. Aren't we closer to like 40-something for the national average? Usually it's first marriages are closer to 50%. So it seems this number on the bottom seems odd, but whatever.
ecclesiastic
pulled up right
marriage.
here.
That's not.
You brought that up.
What is that?
So that is a religious
if
argument.
If you're an
which
atheist, you
people
should
in
be
a
able
religion-
to
okay, listen,
contend
listen,
with that.
A lot of
dude.
people would not want to do that. You're telling me a small percentage
Who
of people are going to
cares?
do this.
We're talking about mitigating the rates of divorce.
Okay,
It doesn't matter how many
can
do
we
it.
move forward from this one? We agree to disagree.
No, we
Can
don't agree to disagree.
Okay,
I need
so you want to keep it here in
counter-arguments.
your land of make a
I want
make-believe.
counter
No,
arguments.
I'm not going to argue in your land of make believe.
Yeah,
in the
because you
clouds.
can't.
Because
You have no counter
because it's
arguments.
ridiculous. It's
You don't have
ridiculous.
one counter argument.
There's something strangely hilarious about like having this on screen and then hearing them arguing in the background.
Here's a counter argument.
Okay.
I think Michael Sayin was the one who said it's like mom and dad arguing and there's nothing you can do about it, like it's a train wreck. This is you like just trying to keep your eyes on the screen of the TV and like not look back to see like parents arguing and you're just like, ah, shit. You know what I mean? Oh gosh. Funnier now. Not Dan the Man says, I think the problem with this debate is what is the angle of this debate? The topic is marriage, but at what angle is this going at? Because I have no clue where this debate is going at. Yeah, I mean, it started at, is marriage worth it? And then it's like about risk mitigation, and then it's about divorce, which are all related, of course. But yeah, I think the angle is important. I mean, part of me is kind of glad that it was kept open-ended from what the topic is. Like, is marriage worth it for men? And they keep changing the angle of this debate so quickly. Yeah. Men go to Orthodox patriarchal churches. Women go to liberal feminist churches. Minimizing the risk includes blind private trust, prenups for marriages, or a cohabitation and living contract. Layered protections. Absolutely. Yeah, that's that. I think that's a good perspective on that.
What is it?
There's no God in marriage. How many times do I have to say that?
That's an
If you
assertion.
end
It's
up-
not an argument.
If you end
Damn,
up
when's he
in
gonna bring him
divorce
back?
court, God doesn't matter. None of this matters. That's real. That's the realest argument that you can possibly hear. Soon as she
How do
goes-
you end
hold on
up
for a
in a
second,
divorce court without the state?
Hold on for a second. Hold on.
Did my screen freeze? What the hell? Is he going to switch it back?
Hold on for a second. I'm going to tell you how.
Okay.
In the 1940s, which you
there we
so
go.
love, I don't know why you don't live there. You look like you live there. You're dressed like you live there.
They
Here's
wore
the problem.
hoodies and
Hold on
jeans
for a
in the
second.
40s,
Hold
did they?
on for a second. Here's the problem.
Okay.
These people, under your authoritative, godly marriage, still got divorced at high rates
No, they
once
didn't.
no fault divorce showed up. It started at 25%. Then by the time you get here, it's close to 40 and 50%. It's
That's
still
the
prevalent.
stat I'm used to hearing is the 40-50 as the average for everybody. So that's not broken down by religion.
I'm giving you the reality
That's
here.
not the
You're
reality.
trying to drag me back over here to the little house on the prairie. It's not working. It's not going to work with me. How about this?
How about a counter argument?
If
Can I get
traditional
one of those?
marriage, I gave you one.
What?
I mean, come on, man.
What is the
Come on,
counter
man.
argument? Come
Listen,
on, man. It's not a
listen,
counter
listen.
argument. What's the counter argument?
There's no God in marriage, and divorce
That's an
court,
assertion, not
there's
an
no
argument.
God in divorce court.
God's not an
I assert
argument.
that there's no
Okay,
God
well, there
in
is a
divorce
God in
court.
divorce court. Argument defeated.
Exactly.
Argument
Yeah.
defeated.
Oh my goodness,
It's
boy!
so
All right, did you
silly.
leave your sandbox outside? Did you miss your toys?
It's just
Did you not get a
ridiculous.
nap?
Like,
Here's the
I
problem.
want an argument,
This is the
dude.
absolute argument.
Okay.
You're trying to drag me to church. I'm taking
Yeah, see, when I caught the debate live, it was like, I think it was somewhere around here.
you outside of church. You can't combat it because you want to battle inside the church.
Luke Nielsen says the issue not addressed is the miserable men in these religious marriages. That would have been interesting to hear them talk about. I think Andrew would probably say somewhere about like appealing to the ecclesiastical, I don't know, church there, and they in the same guise as like, because I did hear the women sleeping with their husbands part. It would probably be something along those lines as far as the solution. Catholic divorce is lower than the state average, but it is still really high. I've literally listened to hundreds of them. Gosh, I believe it. I believe it. Some may think that CGA invoking Sky Daddy is condescending, rude to the religious. However, I think there needs to be an honest assessment of the level of religiosity of the average person in 2025. That's a good point. I mean, most people are probably just listen. And I think it's good to have some religion, even if that's not a lot. It's good to have some, as a positive influence. But yeah, a lot of people are probably pretty lukewarm. The dowry can be in the form of her savings from her career, inheritance, etc. Absolutely. Just something when it comes to marriage, you know. It's like, hey, I want to stay home and I want you to be the provider. We're both 29 years old now. This is what I've been doing from 18 to 29. I started working out of college and I managed to save, you know, $90,000, which is not impossible to do. I've seen people do it. If a woman is actually marriage minded, she should be saving for her marriage. You know what I mean? And that's what women who didn't get large dowries from their parents, they were working to save for their portions. And then once they got married, then they stayed at home. You know what I mean? But you had to have the buy-in for this, frankly. And it's not, this is something that is a positive thing for society. That rule makes it so we don't need to have a giant welfare state. Because what it's saying is, listen, if you're going to get married, you need to hit this minimum, because then we know you guys can actually afford having a household. Otherwise, these two are going to pair up, have kids, and who's going to feed these kids? Okay, so if we're going to do that, then, you know, if we're going to abandon this system of a self-regulating thing where families regulate each other on how we do reproduction, then we don't need the welfare system. But if we're all going to be out here just, you know, doing what we're doing now, it's hard to avoid the welfare system. It's like you need these things to constantly put duct tape on this disaster. You know what I mean? Like kids being born out of wedlock. You need the child support system to establish paternity for those kids. People not staying together. And not having a plan for procreation. Okay, well, now you don't got any money and you got these kids. What are you going to do? You know, so if it's the other side of this is a kind of communist socialist blob where everybody's just part of the herd and you just pay big taxes. And okay, that's how society mitigates it. And if it's not pushed back to the other way where families are regulating themselves and have a lot more rights because the government doesn't need to step in, then okay, great. But if we're not moving that direction, then the pendulum's moving the other direction, because they're going to be like, we're kind of quasi there already. Just we don't want to admit it when it comes to, you know, the bloated welfare system that we have. Andrew argues if you are not religious, then there's really no point in getting married. Yeah, he said that at the beginning. Luke says the basis of the dowry is that the woman has skin in the game, something to lose if she chooses to walk. Exactly. That's where the pressure comes in. What CGA is trying to say, Christian doesn't work in family court. There's no preferential treatment. Yeah, there, you know, it's not going to have any bearing. The family codes do not include, you know, discussions of religious ethics. It might be loosely based off some things going in the past, but even then it can be argued that it's not because of religion. It's because of economic things and property concerns. Andrew Wilson needs to watch a documentary, Divorce Corp. I remember that documentary. This isn't a debate about how to mitigate risk in marriage in this day and age. Even with all these things men could do to protect, their risk and reward ratio is still not worth it. Yeah, that's why, like, it would be nice to say a good discussion I wouldn't even call it a debate, but a good discussion for them to have is, how do we mitigate hypergamy? That's actually the issue. That's actually the problem. And remember, the entire manosphere hinges on this concept of hypergamy. Okay, that is the central focus. I feel like everything about the red pill springs out from this. So if we address hypergamy, that is the real root of this. And that's where this comes in.
Your dowry, it's my right.
Fundamentally, I think Andrew is pushing a religious position or solution that is simply incongruent, not commensurate with the average person's level of religious involvement. Yeah, that's true. The average person probably is not that level of, you know, religiously involved with somewhere. Dowry is about family inheritance and wealth building, and the woman has to contribute to that instead of just bringing in the pizda. Exactly. And it actually gives them more respect in the marriage. Like, that actually puts them in the station of wife, and it makes sense, and not the station of concubine. Most marriages nowadays, you know, the woman is a concubine at best, because she's not offering anything other than her body. Right. If you want the man to work while you stay home, then a dowry should be required. If not, she would have to go 50-50. Yeah, pretty much. And listen, that was the feminist promise. When the feminists wanted to get rid of the dowry, because they really pushed against it, the promise was, oh, well, now that women are working more, then they don't need it. And that's how you got this idea of, marital community property. Because it's like, okay, fine. There is no need to delineate what the dowry is. It's just whatever's everything's community property. And since women are working, that would conceivably be a fair share. But is that how it went down? I don't know. It doesn't seem like it for most people. I am not, in the most literal, blunt terms, I'd probably fall into the atheist category. I don't begrudge the religious, but it's not something that's ever been a part of my life. And again, despite Andrew claiming marriage is only a religious thing, it has to do with a lot more. Paternity being the main one, there is default assumption of paternity in marriage. Yeah, exactly. And it still works like that today. You could even argue if it's a negative, it's almost better to establish paternity through other means if you're concerned, because with marriage, there's a presumption of paternity. It's automatically established, since the child's born within the marriage. Gio Fachot says, we need a James Sexton or lead attorney to mediate the debate or at least give their input. Yeah, that brings up a good question. Like, who would be a good moderator for this debate? Like, when I really think about it, who would be a fair moderator for this one? Like, a lot of people, like anybody in the Rolo side, I think are going to be a little bit more biased towards Andrew. I really don't know. I don't even know who I'd pick to be. To be honest, your suggestions of James Sexton or lead attorney might be a good one. That's a tough question, man. I honestly don't even know who I would choose for the mod. The problem is societal norms, culture, and state laws. Fresh and fit, Myron. I don't know, man. I don't know if Myron would be the good moderator. Michael Sands says, yup, Myron. So you think he'd be a good one? Coach has done stuff with them. Gosh, I want to see Paul Elam be the moderator. That would be like the dream right there. I think Paul Elam would be a good moderator. The lead attorney, LOL. The lead attorney. They already said Myron and Angry Man. That's who they want. Like, that's who Coach. I think, okay. All right. I know I've seen Angry Man. Also, Andrew has debated and is close friends with James Sexton. That's how he knows a lot about divorce stats and laws. Interesting. Thank you for that, Angel. Love these discussions. The space can really devolve into doom and gloom sometimes. Gonna look more into your content. Your dowry solution is interesting. Hidden gems. Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. It's great seeing in here. You know what, man? If I were you, like, I think a quick way to do it, because I did 3 videos with Paul Elam about the dowry. And that's like a great, that covers a lot of it. It was a while ago. But this would be a good one right here. So this video, Bride, Wealth, and Dowry, was our first one. And then I did What She Brings to the Table. And then we did other videos together. This one, The Gold Pill. So, man, Paul and I got to do another video, man. I got to make that happen. But yeah, if you watch this video, and this video, that'd be a pretty good one. And then if you want to see... Okay. Which one is the full video? Oh, yeah, right here. This one is 1 hour and 37 minutes with Pearl. We were supposed to mostly talk about child support, but we ended up talking about the dowry there. So that would be an interesting one. But the Paul Elam ones, I think, are a good one to start with.
I'm not letting you. So let's get back to the state.
I don't care if secularists get married.
Let's get back to the state.
What?
Myron sat there and let Andrew spew insults, calling CGA stupid and anyone who listens to him. I see. Myron is mates with CGA and Andrew. He debated Destiny in good faith. Paul Elam is GOAT. Absolutely. Myron would be the right choice if you ask me. Well, it sounds like it's between Myron and Angry Man. Silver Pill got some love from this show also, JoJo. Shout out Silver Pill. That's Michael saying in the bride price. Guys, I'll probably do this for like another half hour if I'm being honest. Just getting kind of fatigued. We might have to do a part 2 on this one. I know every time I say we're doing a part 2, we never do it. But maybe this one actually deserves a part 2.
What do you mean?
And that divorce rate, did you find out?
Did you see Paul Elam and Andrew Wilson a few years back with Pearl? I did see that one. We reacted to it, actually. That was a Pearl video. If you live in a state that recognizes common law marriage, a prenup could help, but most prenups are held up in court. Okay.
The numbers?
Yeah, I pulled it up earlier, but I'll pull it up again. It's up on the screen. Can you guys see this? Catholic, 19 to 25%. Mainline Protestant, 30 to 35%. Evangelical, 26 to 33.
That's up there.
Now,
that's up there. 40.
Orthodox.
33, 34, 30.
Okay, Orthodox divorce rate.
Orthodox divorce rate. Let's see.
17 to 20?
I see average.
17, 20. I mean, that seems... Didn't he say it was like 10% before? So it's a little higher, according to ChatGPT, if this can be trusted. I'm sometimes very distrusting of when it comes to like sourced information from ChatGPT. Like I like all the AI art and stuff, but with this, I'm always like, man, I gotta double check somewhere.
33%.
That's U.S.
average.
That's evangelical Protestants. That's with the coalition of all of them.
Ever divorced, 17 to 20. U.S. adult average, 33%.
Yeah, so they're much lower.
It says in the U.S., 33%.
Okay. All adults. I'll look into the content with Paul Elam. Heck yeah, man. I appreciate that. They are now doing cohabitation agreements. You must look into this, Shah. It's becoming very common. That sounds interesting. Yeah, I'll have to look into that because it's like, people can get their covenant marriage and then have a cohabitation agreement. The real question is, it's one thing to see the agreements. The other thing is, how does it hold up in court? And we won't have that answer probably for another 10 years or when these things start to have to be fought over in court, if they ever do, which they probably will if people are doing them. It's like a de facto marriage, but you are writing your own annulment. It's funny because, in my opinion, it's like people are just trying to go back to the original marriage contract, where it's like you write your own things in the marriage contract, There's probably still some governing stuff around that, even back then, but, I'm very fascinated with the original marriage contracts. But anyways, yeah, so let's just watch a bit more of this, and I'll probably call it.
The Orthodox ever divorce, that's worldwide.
Yeah, they're much lower rates.
Okay, but you're saying that they can't get divorced. That's what you said.
No, bro.
You said, is that what you said?
The whole point here is, how do we mitigate the risk of divorce? You can't ever completely mitigate
30%.
it. It can't ever be completely mitigated, but you can mitigate the risk of divorce.
Okay, great.
It is lower.
Much lower.
Okay, all right. So a chance of getting hit 30% versus 44%. This doesn't defeat the argument.
It does defeat the argument.
Those divorces happen in the court of law because no divorce cannot be reported in that's not in the court of law.
Actually,
so what is the divorce that happens outside of the court of law? If it's 33% in the court of law with your Orthodox ecclesiastic marriage, what is it outside? What is it within that?
It's even lower.
Okay, so add that 10%.
Yes.
Now we're at 40%.
No, you wouldn't add that. You wouldn't add 10%.
That's the legal
divorce.
divorce.
What are you talking about?
Hold on for a second. When you say a divorce, those are reported divorces legally. That means these people filed in the legal reported system. That's 30+%. Okay? You said there would be more that were outside of the door.
No, less.
Outside of the state.
Less.
No, hold on for a second.
Less.
There's additional.
So he's saying the actual recorded divorces on file from the state is 30%. And he's saying that if there is people who aren't registering with the state getting divorced and they're additional, then, that can be combined with it, if I'm hearing it right.
No. Outside of the marriage, outside of the state. No. Oh, there's none? Well, so you're saying there's zero?
Not really.
What are you saying?
Okay, so let me explain.
Please.
So that you understand.
Additional to the 33%.
Yeah, but you have to, can you at least let me finish this time?
Please do it, because you're slow.
So if it's the case, you're in an ecclesiastical marriage, you're still adding usually the state. These people are all adding the state, okay? The Catholics themselves, if you were to look at their annulments rate from the ecclesiastical authority, it's actually much lower than even the percentage that you're getting from the state because they add the state in, which means some people will ignore the ecclesiastical authority and get divorced anyway.
That's exactly.
I'm going to hear him say it one more time because I'm sorry, I was thinking about something.
But you have to, can you at least let me finish this time?
Please do it because you're slow.
So if it's the case, you're in an ecclesiastical marriage, you're still adding usually the state. These people are all adding the state.
Most people get a covenant marriage and they get a state marriage license.
Okay? The Catholics themselves, if you were to look at their annulments rate from the ecclesiastical authority, it's actually much lower than even the percentage that you're getting from the state because they add the state in, which means...
Okay, so I think he's saying, and I might have misheard him or misunderstood, but he's saying that people get a higher rate of divorce from the state, but when it comes to the church issuing an annulment, it's less.
Some people will ignore the ecclesiastical authority and get divorced anyway.
Yes.
That's exactly what I've been telling you.
Okay, yeah. So I think what Andrew might be trying to say is that the church is not allowing these people to get divorced, and they're saying, no, you two are still married. But what happens is these people are they get their secular divorces, but they're still technically married in the eyes of God. So I think he might say that to mean like this is kind of proof that the church is doing what it can to not allow divorce. So these people are still technically married. I think Coach is going to say, well, okay, that may be fine, but they're still suffering from all the same consequences of divorce, even if they're still like, what good is the ecclesiastic marriage, if they're still dealing with the family law court and going through a secular divorce anyways? That didn't stop her from leaving.
Nobody ever argued that.
Exactly. But so
we're arguing about mitigating the risk. Mitigating the risk.
Still a risk.
No, it would mitigate the risk.
Yeah, like but did it actually mitigate the risk if those same people, okay, a lot of them weren't granted the annulments, but they still got the secular divorce.
So the risk is slightly lower.
Much lower.
I might be misunderstanding the whole thing. Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's kind of...
Okay, that's not that much lower.
It's much lower.
Rate is 40%. You're talking about 33% to 43%.
No, we're not. We're talking about 20% to 35 to 40%.
Okay, so that's lower.
Yes.
Okay, that's all you got. Now, here's
that's
the
all I
problem.
need.
That's not all you need because there's still risk. How do you say
Nobody said there wouldn't be risk.
Exactly.
You
so
can't mitigate risk for anything 100%. It's not possible.
Exactly. So now why are we telling men to get married?
Because you have to, because everything is a cost benefit analysis. Your issue's not marriage. Your issue is with mitigating the risk.
At this point, it's not marriage. This is the only hold on for a second. Can I say this?
Oh my God. Can you ever stop saying something so I can say something?
At this particular point. Listen,
okay, I'm listening.
You're telling me from this point, we haven't even got to the entire marriage because you're still over in the land of make-believe. We haven't even got to the other issues of marriage.
What's make-believe?
Hold on for a second. We still haven't got to the other issues of marriage.
I'm willing to
so
get to
you're
everything.
telling me about the mitigation risk, and we've wasted too much time on it. Can we talk about the other issues of marriage?
Well, okay.
Sexless marriage.
Can we at least wrap this up?
Yeah, let Andrew finalize this, and then we'll move on to that.
The thing is like, the problem is you said it was a great institution. If you say it's a great institution, even when it was a great institution, people were still getting divorced. So if that's the case, what you're really after is just mitigating risk. And I'm giving you a perfect way to mitigate risk, right? And the fact of the matter is that it is becoming more and more popular to do it this way. Prenup plus ecclesiastical authority almost mitigates your risk entirely, except...
If you don't get the marriage license, would people still get a prenup? Well, that's probably what Michael's saying's talking about with the cohabitation agreement. So maybe it's not really a prenup, but it's like a cohabitation agreement.
For common law, but you can pick the state to live in for that. And you, by your own logic, can't defer from common law either. You can't protect men from that. So the thing is like, you can't have it both ways. You can't agree marriage is good and the backbone for the West, and you really like it, and it's fucking great, and it's a great institution, but also don't do it because it's make-believe that
you know what the backbone for the West was?
Your dowry. It's my right.
You can mitigate risk even though you can right this second. That's insane.
Listen.
All right, I'm listening.
Final point. let's get to the other risks that are associated with it. We got that.
That's
we
not a
tackled
final
that
point on this.
That is
Make the final point and then
listen,
go to
listen.
that.
I'm a grown man. I'm not 22-year-old OnlyFans. I'm going to say what I want to say. Listen to this. At this particular point,
you got me on that one.
Listen, we're moving forward.
Okay, we're moving.
It's definitely fallen off the rails a bit. Holy cow, it looks like CGA is going to pop a vein on his head. Oh, man. Andrew's hearing what he wants to hear. Marriage is nothing more than an enforced contract. Sorry, not in Discord. I'll put it in here. It's not a cost-benefit assessment. It's a risk-benefit assessment. Yep. I mean, I think that makes more sense. Jojo says, basically the risk mitigation solutions we are talking about boils down to removing as much incentives for divorce if there is no alimony, asset split, and would have to deal with joint custody. You win. I'd say, yeah, I mean, you know, I could see, I see your perspective on that. It is fairly reasonable as far as risk mitigation goes. Could still be bad, you know, it could still end in a way, but it would be at least a little less worse, you know, given if you were in with a state contract. Do anything for love. It's going to be worth it, man. And even 20% risk is way too high for my taste. They just mentioned China's new law and problem solved about the property. I saw that. That law, I think specifically, is assets that they had before the marriage remain separate property, but stuff within the marriage, I think, is still community. But it sounded like it was a step in the right direction in China.
At this point, what are the other risks that we want to guard against? We got the divorce. You're going to put them on the ecclesiastic paperwork. Less people are doing that. Not a lot of people know how to do it. He just got married. He didn't do it. All right. I can almost guarantee.
Probably not.
Exactly.
So what?
So now, less people are going to do this. Not a lot of people know that. Not a lot of men are going to prepare themselves to do that.
Change that.
Exactly. So that would be a very tough scenario, and most likely it's not going to happen moving forward.
Okay.
There are other issues in marriage that typically, if depending on what authority you go under, are still a risk for men. Yes, it's great for the backbone, but a lot of men are in sexless marriages. A lot of women are in sexless marriages. The percentage of affairs in marriages are still a big issue. That can't be addressed. Those risks are going to be tough. And now you have an issue because now whoever's your authority has to mitigate that risk. Now all of a sudden they have to govern or socially pressure the women, and that's going to be difficult to do. 20%, 30% of sexless marriages, 20, 30% of people having affairs. This is not the intent of people who get married. So yes, we have the divorce. We set that aside. Now, what about within the marriage? How do you mitigate the risk for that? I'm assuming you're going to have the ecclesiastic come through the home and
I think that's what Luke Nielsen brought up before, the people that are in miserable marriages.
Force the wives to fuck their husbands.
Oh, that's quite the straw man. But I'll go ahead and answer. Actually, the ecclesiastical authority does mitigate against this, and here's my proofs. Proof one. If it is the case that you get married to a woman who's a virgin, but she's a virgin because she's a Christian, hang on, let me get through the entirety of the argument before you start freaking out. If it is the case, your chances of that marriage ending, very, very, very small, one. And two, they report that they have a happier sex life. This is actually the case with the decrease in body count, which generally comes with the more religious people, meaning the more that you take your religion seriously, the more that you pray, the more that you engage in that whole ecclesiastical authority thing, the less likely it is you step out of your marriage, significantly less likely. The less likely it is that you end up in a sexless marriage. You know why? Because there's a reinforcement in Christianity that men and women are not allowed to deprive each other of that, of sex, when it comes to marriage. And you find that people who follow the traditional faith generally don't. And so, yes, the ecclesiastical authority preaches that from the pulpit. Sorry, lady, you got to fuck your husband. That's part of God's law. Yeah. What do you got for him?
Yeah, I mean, there's something, you know, that's off on that. I don't know. It doesn't sound very intimate put that way, but whatever. But you know, that's definitely something women will hear, and they probably will want to run away from that. Oh my, like being forced into something like that. I don't know. Maybe he means it a different way.
Go out and just fuck everybody? What is
Caesar Quintana says the host just got married. He'll probably pivot to red pill in 4 or 5 years when his old lady divorce grapes him to kingdom come.
Interesting.
What are
leap.
you going
That's
to
an
do
interesting leap.
to mitigate, by the way?
Michael Satan says, yes, coverture law was a religious principle in marriage. Codified in 1760, it allowed men to force their wife to have sex with them without recourse from the state. Gotta Bible thump your wife to bed with you. Sex is the duty of marriage. Sounds romantic.
You're at the mercy of the same criticism. You can't mitigate guys' girlfriends from fucking around on them any more than you could a person's wife. You can't mitigate them stepping out on them. You can't mitigate them treating them like shit. You can't do anything. At least I have.
That was the comment I was alluding to earlier when I mentioned Rolo. Yeah, about the genuine burning desire. Exactly.
Have a mitigation here. You have nothing. You have nothing. Just liberal degeneracy. Give me something. Something you could do that would give any kind of fail-safe against this. One thing.
I don't know what communities you live in, but your church pastor is going to be very busy walking in all of these bedrooms, preventing divorce and enforcing women to sleep with their husbands. Now, the first leap of faith that you have, hold on for a second. Oh, I heard you. The first leap of faith is virgin. Okay, if we look at the stats, please pull up the stats of how many women qualify as a virgin.
On virginity.
You said
That's
virginity. I'm just letting you know. You brought it up.
In America?
Now, in America, what women percentage qualify as virgins? All right, so you're going to say very few. So you know this.
7%, age 22 to 34.
7%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know what?
So now we have.
Do you know what a baseline for an argument is?
That was the baseline.
Yeah.
You want to say now? Do we want to increase the body count?
Yeah,
I mean, because
yes,
if you're looking,
that was the whole point of the baseline of the argument.
So right now, if we can pull up how many women in Gen Z, because this is marital age women, would have a body count lower than 5.
No,
because
millennials
now
are also marriageably aged. What do you mean?
Okay, millennials, younger millennials. Okay, because there's no point in older people getting married. They're not procreating. All right, they're gonna have 1 or 2 kids. That doesn't help us.
Procreate.
Not that much. All right, they're gonna have 1 or 2 kids. All right, listen. It said in the Bible, in your Bible, it says be fruitful and multiply, not add. All right, we're not adding one little autistic kid. We're multiplying.
That would be multiplying.
No, it wouldn't be multiplying.
Yes,
having
it would.
one little bread
if
ass
you have
kid.
3 and you have 1 more, that's
all right,
multiplying.
Multiplying by 1.
Progressively
All right,
looking
that's
so
not the answer.
multiplying.
Okay, listen. We're multiplying by multiples. You know what I'm talking about. Now listen.
Yeah, that is a multiple that we're
hold on for a second.
multiplying
Hold on
by.
for a second. You want to convince me that there's going to be women of low body count in this secular world we live in to make your scenario work, to enforce women to have sex with their husband from the pulpit.
Yeah.
Do you see? This is very strange.
Well, I have all the data.
I think Coach is making the stronger point here. And again, it's like you guys said, it's more about what is versus what if.
Show me
from a very small percentage. I mean, it works in a podunk town. I don't know where you're from. We're talking about the metropolises. We're talking about.
Jojo says, I have a theory that these marriage tax play a role in these sexless marriages. She knows she has all the leverage, and it's hard to maintain your masculinity in an environment like that. Yeah, I would agree with that. If you have the sort of Damocles over your head, it's unless you're going to rip the Band-Aid off and deal with what's to come, it's very hard to do that, because at that point you're pretty much stuck in a role of almost like subservience. You do not have the power there, or it's not even equal playing field. One thing worth mention is that Andrew has been out of the modern dating scenes for more than a decade. Debating women on whatever isn't the same as actually dealing with women romantically. That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, he's probably been married, for a while and hasn't really been dating. So you're right. I mean, when you're out here on the freaking, yeah, I mean, listen, man. I mean, same. I don't know, man. I don't blame guys that throw in the towel on that. Even myself, man. I'm just like, I think it's just whatever. You know what I mean? It's peace is a very important thing. I think you have some points to be made. Andrew's persevering on a pipe dream. My good friend in New York got granted divorce for no sex for a year. Well, I know divorce still has some partial kind of like at fault type laws. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm sold. It makes a lot of sense. The neocon solution is way too risky without either a dowry or her paying 50-50. Absolutely. Shout out to JoJo, man. Thank you, bro. I'm happy to see that comment. In Jewish marriage through the bride price, they were betrothed by covenant. The man and woman were not considered married until they had sex. There was a witness of the event testifying of the sex. Peace is gold. Absolutely it is. Absolutely. You know, I think I value that a lot more, you know, and honestly, like I have a lot of respect for the MGTOW folks. I don't like the people who denigrate MGTOW. I think MGTOW people are just honest guys that are just looking for peace, man, and that's I respect that. You know what I mean? Sounds good to me, frankly, if I'm being honest.
Major
And
cities.
how is your
And you're
plan
talking about
going to mitigate
virginity.
that? How is your
I
plan
asked
going to
you,
mitigate
remember,
that?
I don't know if you remember. I asked you. All right.
And I
This is
told
the question
you.
and you came back with virgins.
No.
And you came back with enforcing sex
Why
from
do
the
you only
pulpit.
give half the argument? That's why you can't respond to my arguments. So let's do it again. If you want to mitigate.
Force women to have loaded body
You're
counts.
not, dude. How's it force?
Go ahead.
How's it force?
You're the one enforcing sex
How
with the
is
husband.
it? How
did you
are we
enforce
using force?
How are you enforcing sex to the husband from the pulpit?
Through social pressure, doofus. The same way you would with
Okay,
everything.
Gentlemen, your wife is going to have sex with you because a church reverend enforced her to have sex with you.
Was it Reverend Clapcheeks? I always think Reverend Clapcheeks is funny.
Do you think?
Okay, please pull up the chat.
Reverend Clapcheeks, man. Got it taken care
His
of.
suggestion is to have a church reverend enforce you
They're
to
not
have
enforcing
burning
it.
desire to have sex with your
Enforce
husband.
requires force. Enforce is a derivative of force. You can't enforce absent force. No one's saying force.
This is how your sex is going to be had in his marriage. It's through enforcement through the religious pulpit.
No, it's going to be
this
the
is
idea.
2025,
If it's
and we're
the
still here
idea-
somewhere on Little House on the Prairie.
If it's the idea,
I would love
that
to have
women
this reality.
If it's the idea that women have and men have both, that they're not supposed to deprive each other from this, because that is how they live the life of a Christian.
Man, bro, I remember I used to watch that show. One of my favorite shows is 2.5 Men. I used to watch that when I was like in college. I just remember seeing it on with Charlie Sheen. You get to see the two brothers live two different lifestyle, one red pill lifestyle and one blue pill lifestyle. You get to see the path of the different choices. Yeah, I remember that. Charlie Sheen was like this guy that wrote jingles, so he had like a good amount of money and he would just sleep with different women. And then the other brother like went the marriage route and he was a chiropractor, but he was just not respected, you know, not respected. I'm back. Welcome back, oikophobic. Yeah, that was a good show, and then they replaced him with Ashton Kutcher or something, and it just went off it wasn't that good anymore. It's a good show.
Case of the matter is that they try to keep themselves sexually appealing to the partner. They try to keep themselves moving towards that state where they're found appealing. That's part of that. Why do you think? And by the way, you keep saying force. Can you demonstrate anywhere that I said that there would be any force involved with any of this, or that it's even necessary? Enforce is force.
Correct. That's what. So I was.
So
correct
where
by
is
using
the force? Where?
You tell me. You're the one.
You're
that's gonna
asked the
say-
question.
Wait, you're the one that told me the church reverend is going to come enforce marriage.
No.
and sex.
When?
You said that earlier.
No.
It's definitely off the rails at this point.
I said the
Enforcement
ecclesiastical
from the
authority
from the
uses
pulpit.
social pressure.
Social pressure
That's
to
not
make your
force.
wife fuck your husband.
No, you're not making
So
them
that's-
do anything.
Okay, to encourage them to fuck their
Yeah.
husband. Okay, this.
Don't you encourage people's wives to fuck them?
I don't need to be in their bedrooms that much.
Yeah,
I can't
if
force her to do anything.
if
Listen, I
somebody
can't
called
force
you-
a woman to do
If
very
a woman
much.
called you and said, "I don't sleep with my husband. He seems angry at me," would you encourage her to sleep with him?
I wouldn't encourage her to do anything, especially with
You
me.
wouldn't
I don't
encourage
mess
her
with.
to
I
do
don't.
anything.
I don't mess with married women. That's their
Brilliant.
business.
So your
That's their-
solution
that's
is
their-
fucking nothing. Nothing.
My solution is very clear.
What is it?
You're telling me at this particular point that you're going to enforce through social pressure. Social pressure.
That's not
Hold on for a
force.
second. Social
There's no
pressure
enforcement.
social pressure enforces women to be very promiscuous at this particular point. Now, you're talking about 7% of the population or better, maybe 10, that are going to fall under this category, and this is going to lead a wave of women sleeping with their husband through social pressures. when social pressure quite tells them the opposite. Let me move. Let me.
I don't even know what the hell you're talking about at this point.
Exactly. It's very difficult. I know.
You know, let's let Coach get one more point out, then I'll probably call it.
It's very difficult for you. I know exactly, and very nice tactic. But listen,
it's not a tactic. I'm trying my hardest to understand.
You're taking a very small scenario to make it the large scenario. When I'm telling you the larger scenario is the reality, and you're telling me I do this, if I do that.
No,
this is a very small percentage.
You're doing the same
thing. I'm telling you about
if
what's
you get
happening.
married, you may get a divorce.
No, I said when.
If this happens, then this may happen.
We already looked at the statistics of it likely happening.
Yeah,
so that is likely to happen.
First of all, even the statistics
Can you pull up
looked
the
at.
Statistics again.
Yeah, pull up the
marriage
statistics.
The divorces.
For the Christians. It's actually not likely, is it?
In the United States, overall in the United States.
Yeah,
so it only in order for it to work.
You know, I will say, you know, the question is marriage worth it? And Coach is talking about marriage, how we do it in our society, which is, of course, you know, with the state. That's how most people do it. Andrew, from the beginning, discussed marriage in the ecclesiastical sense. If the question was, is ecclesiastical marriage worth it for men, then that would be one thing. But the question was kind of this broad topic of, is marriage worth it for men? Which I think would include the, I think that's more talking about the state marriage. This difference between covenant marriage and the legal marriage is important. But I don't know. From the beginning, he moved it from marriage to just ecclesiastical marriage without the state license. Okay, that's worth it for men. Coach is sticking with just marriage as a whole in terms of the legal contract, you know, and why it isn't. So, I mean, maybe we'll do a part 2 of this, but I'm not sure, only because this next hour is, we're probably going to get another hour of this. But, you know, it might make for a fun stream anyway, so we'll see how we feel. Marriage material is divorce debris. One of my, oh yeah, I read that one. Hi, Pastor Stacks here. I have a warrant for soiled sheets. May I search the premises? CGA said it was Deacon Clap Cheeks, not Reverend Clap Cheeks. That's right. Thank you, Caesar. Deacon Clap Cheeks. True story. Nobody's going to do all that micromanaging of someone's marriage. Yeah, the micromanaging ain't going to work, man. This is why you need a system of incentives built in that everybody can be incentivized to do it. It needs to be by incentive. Social pressure implies a force. That's a good point, Luke. Yes, the church does. I went to Bible college and worked for the church and was ministering for the Catholic Church. So we micromanage all marriages in the church. Not necessarily the force they want to talk about, but a force is a force. Is she already in a church? The social pressure from the community to keep a marriage by satisfying each other will help. If you're secular, you're kind of screwed in this situation. More images. Oh, yeah, hold on a second. Let's see that. It's pretty much become this. The alcohol bottle. Oh my gosh. He's become like 2 people now. Man, thanks for the AI images, bro. I appreciate that. He's realizing Coach is right and red pill raging. I bet the church has not been doing it enthusiastically. This sounds like a recipe to chase people out of the church. You're right. That could be, it could end up doing that. In monogamy, women withhold sex as a form of punishment or weaponizing. This does not happen in polygamous marriages. This whole stream went left field. Yeah. No, marriage ministry is the biggest ministry in the church. The debate is over. From now on, it just goes into insults. Got it. Yeah, I mean, it kind of seems like they're not going to reach an accord at this point. So, you know, in name of Jesus, I command you to allow your husband to fold you like a pretzel and shove your face in the pillow. Amen. Come on, guys. Polygamy is the only way to fix if we have a culture full of concubine women, not wife material. Well, that's what you kind of see happening at this point. It's not official polygamy, I guess, but people are sort of doing it. A part 2 doesn't seem like a good idea if this is going to be the whole debate, but it will be fun. That's the thing. Yeah. If we did it, it'd have to only be just because it would be fun to watch that. But, you know, as far as any, you know, maybe we'll do it. We'll see. That's why Andrew, you know, but by the time next week comes, maybe they'll have a part 2 figured out, you know, at that point. That's why Andrew keeps bringing up church. You absolutely need a community that helps facilitate good behavior in the marriage. Without it, you are more exposed to the influence from the current culture. Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's supposed to survive as like a petri dish surrounded by this thing. And, you know, I'd like to think it's possible, maybe. I don't want to be pessimist or negative about it. But there is a lot of outside pressure to mess with that petri dish. Don't you think CGA's doom and gloom leads men to resort to sex dolls, robots, or escorts? You know what? That's an interesting point. Yeah, I mean, like as far as black pill stuff, and then it goes into the JUCO or things like that. If you say that it's a monetized dating marketplace, then you're engaging with women based off of monetary, you know, arrangements. Women's new god is social media. Can't debate that. Polygamy for the win. W saying W silver pill. Mr. Pitt is very positive on the silver pill. Shout out to the silver pill. I live in a very unified and singular church neighborhood and culture. It helps, but it still doesn't work. Klaus says to Jojo, I'm not sure the community in churches works like that anymore. With all the born-again virgins, if Anala can get in, that sure will be a hell of an influence. And my church is very, very religious. I guess I should say former church. I can't go there anymore. Can't go there. Oh, because, yeah, I got it. Kevin Samuels has a great critique of marriage and women in churches in his video. Does the church want black men back? I think it would be a great rebuttal to Andrew's points. That does sound like a good video. What's wrong with sex robots asking for a friend? Only if James Sexton is the moderator. He knows what he is doing and also makes it fun. Yeah, he does make it fun. Man, we got to play that song again by Mad Villainy as we see us out.
Dowry, it's my right.
Man, that song goes hard. Oh, man, dude, I forgot to look at the comments on this, bro. Let's see what they say. I enjoyed my trip to the land of make-believe. Now you have to go back to the real world. Godspeed. The pool of women we have to choose from will not follow religion today. You're a Neanderthal. You look like you're from the 1940s. Come on, man. Please don't argue like a toddler. It's a waste of everyone's time. To be fair, he's right. Secular marriage doesn't work. I have no solutions, neither do you. Andrew provides solution. Make believe. This guy has a senior citizen beard, yet argues like a 14-year-old. Absolutely wild. Problem with the debate is there is no debate here. Andrew is saying marriage works under specific conditions. CGA is saying these specific conditions do not apply. Yeah, I mean, I think that sums it up. CGA should have simply responded like this. I don't disagree with your prescription. I simply think it's practically infeasible to implement today. This ain't a good look for CGA. Decent points, but he argues like a high school girl. Cutting off insults, name calling, it's whack af. I mean, you know, they're both kind of in the mud pit at a certain point. I was in a Christian marriage for a long time and it was good while it lasted, but when it got bad, it was the lowest point in my life. I will never get married again. Man, dad of war. Gosh, look at that picture. CGA was, I thought it was like a zombified version of him, like someone who was just so tired of like the constant battlefield of this marriage. CGA was arguing about present problems. Andrew was arguing about future solutions. So Andrew's solution is to have a wife who is sleeping with you, although she hates your guts because of religious and social pressure. The moderator could have done a way better job. Do you understand that a sexless marriage is grounds for divorce? It can be considered abandonment in some states. Christian marriages hold up because we can recognize that the world is much bigger than us. There'll be bad times, but our love and bond gives us strength. I'd much rather be doing what I can to provide even a small fraction of good in this world. Meanwhile, you follow your selfish desires. that just caused more single mothers and mother aborted children. The moderator could have done a way better job. I mean, yeah, probably could have. This was embarrassingly hard to watch as you made an absolute fool of yourself, Coach. Telling Andrew that he only debates OnlyFans girls, then acting like an OnlyFans girl is crazy work. The debate was horrible, and I write this as a supporter of both men. Oh my God. All right, we got a whole essay. I'll probably read a couple paragraphs. I think the moderation was poor, causing both debaters to routinely interrupt each other, losing much needed clarity on many points. It was like watching two separate debates just with the same participants. It appears from the jump, CGA lost the debate by admitting marriage is good. The debate was over early with that admission. I don't know about that. I mean, I think I would say marriage is good, but he's saying the way it's done today, marriage as a concept, or is good. It is good, but given what we're dealing with today, it's a bad deal. However, there is not a flaw in CJ's assessment on divorce and modern dating. The truth is, even by Christian standards, modern women isn't marriage material. Christian women, especially, should be virgins at marriage, and the majority are not. I see now why CJ doesn't like to debate people. Also, the moderator was lazy in this debate. He should have stepped in multiple times, and the debate should have been structured better. Yeah. Andrew Wilson is a better debater and more educated. CGA, though, shows the real world. In my 54 years, I've yet to meet one single woman who would stick to religious rules and ethics when she can take advantage otherwise. The instant she finds something or someone better, she'll dump you with or without religion. That's the hypergamy. This debate proved most men in America are asleep at the wheel, and free agent lifestyle is the true way. All right. I did not want to forget to do that. Song is too good right here. This one made the Gold Pill album. And there's a beautiful symbolism, because what we've been trying to do is discuss the dowry in the context of our modern world. And this song represents a modern song, like a modern Western song style, but it's about the dowry. Like, this is what we've been trying to do. This is a symbol of that. So it's a beautiful thing. A lot of the songs that the folks have made have achieved that. Dad of War pretty much declared who won the debate. Yeah, that's true. It is a falsity that religious people always resort to saying degeneracy or marriage. It is not a binary thing. And degeneracy is a cop-out argument. That's an interesting point. I like that, Luke. I agree. I lived his reality. Giving up commitment for free or even for a raw deal like state marriage makes no sense. With all the leverage on her end, she literally has no incentive to work things out with you. Exactly. This is where get my dowry. Bring me my dowry. Man, I gotta blast this one from my vehicle, man. I gotta get this. I gotta be able to play this. This is where the Shah Squad audio, created by Mr. Pitt, really comes in. We gotta add this one. That one was too good. Let's go ahead and throw Deadbeat Woman in there before we call it. Just because we love that song. Damn, dang it. I did want to play Mr. Pitt's. Well, Mr. Pitt will have to do Shah's Bold Endeavor next time. Can the person who made the song drop the MP3 file in the Discord? Yo, Mr. Pitt, it is in there. It is in there. Let me see. I think it's in there. It's right here. It's the second one, bro. This is the one you want right here. Number 2. That was made by Mad Villainy, by the way. Song's too good. This is another just car blaster. I want to hear this in every bar across America. Can the person who made the song drop the MP3 file in the Discord? Oh, yep, we got it in there by Mad Villainy. I can send it to you too also, Mr. Pitt. If men take the approach of not fighting the culture war to make things better and check out, we will meet the fate of grow old and die alone, like KS used to say. The same fate as the feminist. Yeah, I mean, if we can't work together, man, things unravel, fortunately. Unfortunately. Luke, we feel your pain. Exactly, bro. I want to see Shah dance this song. If a woman wants you to marry her for U.S. papers, what type of dowry should you require? Like, you mean she wants to come here to be an American, or I want to marry her to become an American citizen? If I'm marrying her from outside the country, that is the dowry, is the citizenship at that point. If it's the other way around, she better come in with, you know, I'd say about half the value of the house at least. At least. Maybe even more. Do the running man. Got one more image to end the stream. Hell yeah. This is where it ended up. They're still arguing with each other. That was fun, man. Dude, I really like this picture. Oh, it's got the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics on it too. This is it right here, bro. I'm telling you, man. We got that song too about wielding dowry as a weapon. That was an early song. Man, another fantastic song. The running, get it, running, man. I don't know if I get it. Running away from this. Better Get My Dowry is now on the audio.com album for sure. All right, heck yeah. Now I can play this from my vehicle. Thank you, Mr. Pitt. You would dance, the running man of this song. All right, legends. It's about hitting almost midnight, man. I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. And, you know, all the stuff that you guys want to do, you can get accomplished for it. And I hope to the folks that have Tuesday off, you guys enjoy your Tuesday off. I'm looking forward to that. I keep forgetting I get Tuesday off, so I'm excited every time I remember about that. So that's kind of tight. But yeah, had some fun. I know we got a Christmas jingle going on too. We'll get that played next week. That one was in the Discord. So yeah, man, I'm just gonna get some rest, man. I'm so beat. Thank you to the folks that watch. We got 33 likes on the stream. 32 people in here. We had 40 people at one point. Shout out to Jeff Younger who left a comment. Appreciate him coming in here to, you know, leave a comment, which was tight. And man, hopefully there's more to come. You know, I've been busy with stuff, man. I'm just trying to keep everything alive with the stream. So the folks that come here and hang out on Saturday night, man, it makes it all worth it. And it's always a lot of fun, you know. God willing, you know, we can keep this going. Sometimes I wake up and I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, man. Maybe I'll just stop talking and just walk to some beautiful meadow somewhere and then into the forest. But yeah. Klaus says, great stream. Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you, Klaus. Appreciate you, man. Hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you, Oikophobic Misanthrope. It's a pleasure having you here. Have a good day. From Luke Nielsen. Thank you, Luke. Happy early birthday and Veterans Day to you, sir. Discord, HTTP. In the description, we have the Discord invite link. So if you go to the description, you can just click on the invite link and it'll take you straight to Discord so you can get into the server, basically. Thank you, Michael Sane, for being here. Discord link's in the description. Thank you, Dan the Man. You're a legend, bro. Thanks for all that artwork. Have a great night, y'all. Thank you, Jojo. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight, man. Enjoy those Paul Elam videos. Thanks so much for another fun stream. No worries, man. That makes it all worth it. A comment like that. I'm glad that, you know, we got a place to be on a Saturday night. And I pray for the prosperity and good health of all of you folks.